Welcome everyone to another live stream. Today we are of course talking about John Galliano, and we are talking about John Galliano leaving Margiela. Now, we already knew that he was leaving Margiela. We heard the stories that he didn't renew his contract. So it was really just a matter of when it was announced rather than, us not knowing exactly that John Galliano was leaving Margiela. So he had a statement on his Instagram that I'll read through because it's quite long, but it's also very interesting in terms of what was said, and it'll be good to analyze and speak about exactly what he was saying. So to read it, it says, "Today is the day I say goodbye to Maison Margiela. My heart overflows with joyous gratitude and my soul smiles. For I am 14 years old today, 14 years sober, living a life better than I ever dreamt possible. And this is thanks to the two truly beautiful people whom I both love and cherish. They, however, are too humble to allow me to mention their names here. We know who they are, and I will be forever indebted to them, forever grateful. The rumors. Everyone wants to know, and everyone wants to dream. When the time is right, all will be revealed. For now, I take this time to express my immense gratitude. I continue to atone, and I will never stop dreaming. I, too, need to dream." So that's interesting. He hasn't really addressed the rumors around where he's going to next, what brand he's designing at. He really says that all will be revealed soon. That's very, very interesting. I also find it very interesting that he's opened his statement with talking about the fact that he's been sober and talking about the fact that he's continuing to atone. I feel like the past, let's say 2 years, has felt like a Galliano PR, time where everyone's just collectively trying to clean up his image, even him himself. Not there's anything wrong or good, positive or negative with that. It's just interesting to see that that's how he started. But continuing on, it says, "At a Halloween family gathering in Tokyo, all in festive makeup under the silent slow motion gaze of the full moon, Renzo engaged in a dialogue about legacy. He told me his legacy would be his children and his work. This conversation prompted an unexpected question from him about my thoughts on John Galliano. I explained that I had mourned the loss of John Galliano and my previous identity, but I am much happier with the new version of John Galliano. I strive daily to be a better version of this person. I then felt emboldened and challenged him. I told him that, from my perspective, a part of his legacy would be the goodness and kindness he showed me 10 years ago. The greatest, most precious gift he gave me was the opportunity to once again find my creative voice when I had become voiceless. My wings mended, and I better understood the all-consuming act of creativity. My gratitude for the sentiment only the brave tattooed on him runs deep. To have this bled onto your skin must mean you truly believe in this motto. He can be very persuasive. He's positively infectious. In inviting me to assume the position of artistic director in the house that Martin built, and further enabling Martin and me to partake in a cup of tea together." That's interesting. So Galliano and Martin Margiela shared a lovely cuppa, a tea. They shared one together. That's very, very interesting. But continuing on with the statement, he says, "This gentleman tipped the balance for me. He made me feel like I could do the job, even when I doubted I was the right person for it, or dared to presume I was. Martin's joy and his long hidden wish that a couturier would assume this role came along with this kind advice. Take what you will from the DNA of the house, protect yourself, and make it your own. You know how to." In front of this gentleman, I had an epiphany. I was ready. I would only surround myself with like-minded people, strong people who shared the same work ethic. I informed Renzo I would take him up on his kind offer, but my recovery would have to come first, and it did. 10 years later, I am forever grateful for this safe space to create and build a new family that supports me with courage and dignity. Although little had changed in the industry then, my perspective on it has radically shifted. I begin to see changes all around me, compassion and empathy. Gratitude to my fashion family for this life-saving creative moment and the safe place we have built together. My teams, whose support has been tender and courageous, have walked with me along the narrow pathway to the here and now. Human beings at their best are resilient, creative, and inventive when unafraid of being themselves. I'll readily admit I'm demanding and difficult to run with when challenged, but look at what we have built. John Galliano, I feel like since him becoming sober and him being very self-reflective, he has this extremely good level of self-reflection. And I must point that out because I think so many fashion designers, and we talk about this all the time, I say this a lot with Demna, it's like there's a lack of self-reflection there when he makes statements and, you know, says certain things. Are like, where's the self-reflection there? John Galliano, it seems, from all the statements, all the things I've heard him say, especially within the past, let's say 3 to 4 years, I really do think that he has this like newfound strong sense of self and understanding of self. That's probably why he's been able to, you know, stay sober for so long. But yeah, he's that self-reflection to be like, I understand I'm very hard to work for and I can be a bit demanding and it can be challenging. But at the end of the day, it was all for a common goal and we achieved a certain level of creativity that is, you know, hard to achieve in general. I love that. To see that kind of self-reflection from John Galliano. But anyway, on to the second page. It says, this is when the fashion industry is at its best, when we collectively support each other, not judge, when we accept, forgive, and help one another see the error of our ways, being brave enough to unlearn, to re-educate ourselves from the past, for it is socially learnt to share, empathize, and practice compassion. Once again, this seems like very much the, you know, changing the image for him to talk about. The fashion industry is always at its best when we collectively support each other or not judge, when we accept, forgive, and help one another see the error of our ways. That, I think most of this is kind of like him, you know, talking about some moments at Margiela that are very interesting, but also him really, you know, covering this issue once again and these issues and constantly addressing them. Interesting. Continuing on, it says, a second chance. With childlike eyes and forgotten innocence, we make amends, believing in ourselves. For God is in all of us, not when we cancel each other out. This precious gift I speak of, supported by cherished and loved ones, allows me to see the world afresh through a different lens. It enables me to share this experience with young adults joining us, reinforcing a belief in oneself. You can be whoever you want to be. Enjoy. You do matter and we do care. Forgiving myself was, for a while, the hardest act. I felt guilty that my behavior perpetuated the stereotype that creativity had to be fueled by drink and drugs. Oh my God, this is seriously self-reflective. The fact that, you know, he said, I, you know, didn't want to perpetuate this trope that most of creativity comes from being drunk and all this trauma and being on drugs and all that sort of stuff. That's great to hear him talk about that, right? That's amazing to see him say that. But continuing on, it says, that rock and roll attitude, so wrong. With my teams, we've proven that creativity is never out of fashion. It is not fueled by those destructive forces, but by a creative community that cares and considers design. Through the films we've produced and the resulting platforms created, I am able to stay in touch with my digital nomads, connecting and sharing experiences without fear. Mutiny, the film, culminated my work and verbalized our socio-political messaging. Our beliefs that trans rights, queer rights, gender equality in the workplace, anti-racism, and mental health advocacy had to be at the center. It was a manifesto for this brave new generation, a testament to the courage to stand up proudly and fearlessly for what you believe in. I celebrate the genderless collections we now produce, reinforced by how they are bought and supported. My co-ed collections, whether artisanal or ready-to-wear, represent diversity and individuality, or how John Galliano would say it, artisanal. artisan. I've listened to so many John Galliano podcast episodes at this point where he's like, and the artisanal collection that we did. I love John Galliano's voice. I don't know why. It's so interesting. But anyway, continuing on, it says, I celebrate the magical relationships with my muses who challenge me to create safe spaces where we can dream and make believe. You inspire everything I do. You are my life. All my muses have battled society's norms and restrictions on gender and body identity. I rejoice in self-expression and freedom. Finally, I want to celebrate the joy I found in the various ways we communicated creatively and worked with different artistic cultures, theatre, cinema, digital, embracing all these cultures to celebrate fashion. To my atelier, my A-team, devout in belief and dedicated to style and technique, thank you. We relish in the importance of slow and ethical fashion and the influence it has on all our collections. The pyramidical way of working. Your outstanding knowledge and ability to communicate align with feeling and emotion in the heart of all creation. Together, we are driven by beauty, the quest for balanced construction, and the lightness of a feather. Thank you, Johnny G. That end was really interesting, him saying Johnny G. Does anyone, I've never known him to be called Johnny G. Is that a way for him to sort of humanize himself? Because like I said, this statement seems like a balance between him, of course, saying thank you to the team, him talking about the work he's been able to achieve, him talking about his conversation with Renzo, the fact that he shared a cup of tea with Martin, and Martin gave him his blessing, Renzo gave him his blessing. It's kind of like a mixture of all those things. Okay, Luke says his friends always call him Johnny G. Okay, that's interesting. So that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, I think John Galliano had a sensational run at Margiela. And I know that when we talk about John Galliano's Margiela, we always talk about the Couture collection. I understand why we do that. You know, the Spring Summer 24 artisanal collection. I understand why we do that because it did take fashion by storm and everyone was talking about it. It went viral on social media. It was huge on TikTok. Everyone was talking about it on Instagram. It was huge on Twitter. So I understand why people talk about it. But me personally, when I really started to take notice, I mean, since Galliano was there, I took notice. But when I really started to take notice of what John Galliano was doing was during the lockdown when he started the Swalk collections. That to me was when I was like, oh, okay, this stuff is crazy. Like, this stuff is actually insane. Because when I think about it, it was lockdown, so it was a different medium. He was, making a lot of these videos during COVID. And what I loved about it was you could really go through and understand John Galliano's process, right? You could really understand how he creates him talking to Nick Knight, who made a lot of the films, especially the Swalk films, him talking to Pat McGrath, the collaborative effort with all the different members of the team, kind of where his ideas were. In tandem with these videos on YouTube, he also made these podcast episodes that you can listen to on Spotify or Apple Music. And I would, encourage all of you to actually go and listen to those episodes because he really deeply explains where all his ideas come from. So the first Swalk collection was very much inspired by the 80s Blitz scene, the club scene in London. He was looking at, 1800s marble statues. He was looking at mysterious events and stories that have happened within the Margiela atelier. Of course, you had Nick Knight, who is an amazing creative and was using body cams, surveillance cameras, drones, Zoom calls, phone texts, Google searches, all these different things and merging them into what became the films. You have references to Nijinsky. That's why you have these ballet slippers that were turned into sort of these tabby ballet shoes. You had these chiffon leggings, which is also a reference to ballet. And I just love that it felt like you were taken through this process. So to me, this was when I was like, oh, okay, like what John Galliano is doing at Margiela is insane. Like, it's crazy, right? So that was the start for me. You had the second Swalk collection, Swalk 2. Like I said, sealed with a loving kiss is what Swalk stands for, if many of you are not aware. The same vibe, once again, the process. I also think that Swalk 2 was very much the building blocks of what became the viral, artisanal show, right? Because when you look at the way it was filmed, the mood, the rain, I can see the elements from this collection in the viral show. And it's weird actually that no one, when I saw people talking about the viral show that he had, no one was hearkening back to these collections that essentially became the building blocks. Even when you look at, and I won't put it on the screen because I just want to talk about Galliano now, because I've really loved a lot that he's been doing at Margiela. Something that I really loved also was the, I think it was in 2021, the Artisanal Margiela show in 2021, where he was really talking about his obsession with three main things that has been a through line in a lot of his collections. This obsession with vintage denim, this obsession with white t-shirts, and this obsession with Loden coats, because he was investigating this idea of like the bourgeoisie, how he calls it the bourgeoisie, when you listen to his podcast episodes, and kind of how you think of Loden coats and you think of the bourgeoisie, but then you think of white t-shirts and you think of like everyday wear, and kind of merging these two ideas together, and what is the context of something that the bourgeoisie wear versus a white t-shirt that's everyday, and then, vintage denim and how that changes. So when he was exactly what Luke is saying, the bourgeois gestures, he always says that. So one of the ideas in that collection I remember was this idea of your favorite denim jacket, right? And your favorite denim jacket, if you think about it, over time, it changes with time. So the color might change because it fades over time. There might be certain creases because of your gestures when you wear the jacket. Gestures is a word that he loves using, right? So this gesture, like maybe because you bend your arm, so at this part of your jacket, there are certain creases that are inspired and informed by the gestures you make wearing that jacket. And that changes because when a crease happens with denim, you can see the lines and it becomes really white or light colored compared to the rest of the denim. So it's really this understanding of how your favorite jacket and how denim is a fabric that you can really see how it changes with time. One of the ideas, the main ideas in that collection actually, was this idea that, when you rip the sleeves of denim just through wear, you can actually see the true color of the denim from the start, because when you rip through the denim and you look under, you can see, oh, that was the original color of the denim before all these gestures and the sunlight and the fading and the washing over time changed what that denim means. That also then delved into this idea of, generational hand-me-downs. But you know what? Let me put this collection on the screen so you guys can actually visualize what I'm talking about before I go on a John Galliano verbal word vomit of how good his Margiela ideas are. So it's this collection I'm talking about, the Folk Horror Tale collection. So let me see if you can, some of the ideas I'm talking about, you can see them. Let's see. Okay, I'll just leave it there. But so that idea of denim and how it changes over time then delved into this idea of generational hand-me-downs, and it kind of follows a similar idea, right? When you have this idea of the character, so something that he mentioned that I was like, this is so interesting, is when someone hands down clothing to a family member, there's kind of an idea of the character left behind of the person's clothes. And so when we talk about this, you can kind of see it as this clothing is imbued with the personality of the person, that the wearer that wore it before they passed it down. And that makes so much logical sense, right? Go even down to this denim idea. When the kind of things that you do, the kind of way that you wear the clothes, the kind of way that you've washed it. Maybe you smoke cigarettes, so there's like an ash burn or a cigarette burn on a part of your face. That kind of idea of the personality of the wearer and the character left behind of the wearer is imbued into every piece of clothing that is handed down. It's such an interesting idea, and it's also an idea that informed a lot of, you know, how he did the collection, right? How he made the collection, the research for the collection, how things were cut. He talks about how difficult the pattern making was because he had all these treatments and enzymes and washes that he was doing research on. And through this research, it informed whether he would, you know, make a pattern a bit too big, because obviously through the processing, it would shrink, or maybe too small based on a certain effect. And that's what you can see here. They're doing kind of like the research on the garment dyes and the processes that then inform. So you guys can see it on the screen. And this is why I love these films, especially because you can really understand and delve deep into the process, right? So I just think that, you know, he is a genius. Like, John Galliano is a genius, like, seriously. And a lot of stuff that he did at Margiela, to me, went really, really unnoticed. And it's good that, you know, the viral show became the viral show, and that was what everyone talked about. But I think there is so much to talk about when we talk about John Galliano at Margiela and what collections were interesting, and, you know, what collections did he do an interesting thing. And also Luke said, yeah, this idea of dressing in haste is one of his Margiela codes. That's very true. And going back to the word gestures that he talks about all the time, is this idea of kind of the gestures of someone in a rush, which of course was an idea, you know, that he had with the famous collection. This idea, you know, it's cold outside and you quickly just wear your jacket and you have to cover your body, and that's kind of a gesture you make. But it's across all the collections. This is an idea that we see through John Galliano's Margiela. So I really just wanted to kind of give him some praise and give him his flowers, because he has had such good work at Margiela. And I think, me personally, from the COVID times, I started really looking deeply into what he was doing, because I was like, wow, this guy is really, really onto something. But yeah, Dami, how are you doing?
Hello,
You're
can you hear
muted,
me?
by the way.
Can you hear
Okay,
me?
I can hear you now.
All right then. Good evening, everybody. Damanora here. So yeah, I'm doing well. I was just enjoying what you were saying and like just acclimating to the type of video that you want to create. But yeah, no, his Margiela was amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
genius is the word for sure.
Yeah, I just think so much of it goes unnoticed. It's almost sad. I mean, it's good because, you know, he got his flowers in the end. But I think it's sad because I think the earlier Margiela collections, to me, were like, wow. Like,
Bro,
this guy is insane.
all right, yeah. What I appreciate about his Margiela is that there's an interpretation there, and his value of human life, as in the living of a person, is imbued in the way that he actually creates. So one of the very first collections that was like a wow moment for me was the Spring 18 Couture collection with the iridescent
Yeah.
clothes. And that was like an access point for me in John Galliano's collections, because you saw the iridescent clothes and people were in like darkness in the runway show, and people were like, wow, why is it all dark? Da, 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 da. And then the flashing starts, like someone's walking out and then you see the clothes just flash, and then there's this more momentary impact of, oh, I can see the clothes now, and then it just disappears, and the models are walking down the runway and you see all of these looks, and as a procession starts, you're able to illuminate what is happening on the runway, right? And then not just that, and then it permeates into the way people dress. And then there was this like sweeping sensation of people wearing iridescent clothes throughout streetwear, high fashion, and everything else. And that was the genius of his Margiela, and that is generally what couture is supposed to do. It's supposed to inspire the rest of fashion as it stands, right? And we don't necessarily see that with couture. So for me, that was like his access point that made me just
Mm.
stop in
And
place.
that's something that he says himself, right? He always says that couture is the highest level of dressmaking, right? That's something that he says. So he personally believes that, right? That couture is supposed to be at the top, and that really influences everything beneath it. Like the ready to wear clothes, what people wear in the street. But unfortunately, because once again, I don't think a lot of couture collections these days are actually that interesting. Obviously, the techniques are interesting because it kind of has to be. It's couture. But I think when it comes to the actual ideas, I have found Galliano's couture the most interesting quite consistently across most brands that do couture. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. With Lucas saying
Yeah,
Glenn Martens is going to yeah, I think everyone knows about John Galliano's Dior work, to be honest. These young bloods definitely know about his Dior work. They must do. There's no way they can't.
yeah,
Because I feel
and
like even the controversy is tied to him being at Dior. So it's literally almost impossible for you to know who John Galliano is and not know about him being at Dior and all those kind of things, right?
well, fair, yeah, yeah, no, it's almost improbable, fairly, like, yeah, probable, but no,
Where do you
like
think
his,
where do you think Galliano is going next? Because people have said Fendi, that Kim Jones, is leaving the his role at Fendi, so Galliano might be there. There's people saying that there's a potential he could go to Dior. There's people saying that he might be able to go to his eponymous label if that gets reopened. It seems like there's a few options, but what option do you think would be the best fit for him, and what do you think would happen?
well, what happened with Galliano's Margiela is generally what happens with most great designers at a place where they can be absolutely comfortable. It's the same thing with JW Anderson's Loewe
Hmm.
and Matthew Blaze's Bottega, where it's like this is the perfect fit, right? In terms of artfulness. So Galliano's Margiela is like artfulness personified. So if we're talking about his best fit, it's probably, you know, somewhere cool. Like it would be like a Dior. It would be like a coming home, to be fair. It would be like, and if he went to Dior, it would be like LeBron going back to Cleveland. It would be like
That's actually a funny reference, but I see exactly what you
I,
mean.
di- I didn't know how else to put it, but like he won the ring somewhere else, and now he needs to win the ring again back home. You get it? So that's where his value would be placed best because of like what Dior stands for. If I were to like be really rebellious, I would say he should be at the highest post at one of these other houses. And if I were to pick any place for him, it would be Gucci. And I know Sabato Sono and everything like that. But it depends. It depends.
Yeah.
I would say Gucci. But who knows, man? I'm confused. I think he will
Someone
take a
said
hiatus.
McQueen. You know what? I would, I would love to see him at McQueen because I feel like eventually him and McQueen kind of had a really nice relationship, and that like there was a mutual respect there, and he would have so kind of the way he had respect for Margiela, so he treated the house with a lot of respect. I feel like he would treat McQueen with a lot of respect. So I would, just for my own personal thing, would love to see him at McQueen. But Lucas said that he's negotiated a deal for his own label. There's going to be a couture line and a fragrance. Oh, that's going to be interesting if that happens.
If that were the case, that would be fun and fire. The only question is the resources, right? And whether he wants to build up another brand to glory again. And as it was like Galliano, Margiela, McQueen, right? And they all had this, understanding of one another. Like it's the conversation we were having slightly at, on the previous live stream in terms of like rivals and looking at your contemporaries and being inspired by your contemporaries. And for me, I would say him at McQueen would just be another go around in terms of like just that, in terms of like how you see your contemporaries. Like me personally, right? If I made my friend's brand reach the highest point, would I just go to another friend's brand to reach the highest point? Is that the type of person I am, or is it like would he want to do like full ego throttle to work on his own brand essentially?
Do you know the thing about John Galliano though? Like, because like I called him a fashion genius before, and I do genuinely believe that. But the thing about John Galliano is that he's so creative, and I love it. But his stuff just doesn't sell. And the reason why his Margiela could do so well is because he can channel his creativity into a commercial thing that sells when there are things that already exist. So with the House of Margiela, tabbies existed, and then John Galliano could make this fantastical world where tabbies are in that context. Like I was talking earlier with this collection where, like the Swart collection, where he's referencing Nijinsky, looking at, you know, different famous ballet dancers, making these ballet tabbies, and creating amazing ballet clothing around it to build the world for these tabbies that everyone sees the runway. People see the tabbies, they're like, oh my God, those ballet tabbies are so beautiful. I want those. You know what I mean? So it's easier for him to do that. So I feel like when there are house codes for a house, like really commercial things, he can play on those and just elevate them. But with his own brand, like if he did his own brand, it's very difficult for him to make things that do well commercially because everything is just so fantastical, and it's not, people find it hard to understand.
Yeah, where would the product be placed? It's kind of like J. Cole rapping on his own beats. Like he was the hottest feature for 10 years, but then when he raps on his own beats, it's kind of like, oh, sleepy J. Cole type beat. But yeah, it's in terms of him, it's like he's creating these fantastical worlds, but when the rubber meets the road,
sorry, Luke, didn't Galliano made the Dior saddlebag anyway? So yeah, he has made some hit accessories, but once again, that was in the context of Dior.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to think, what hit accessories or, you know, ready-to-wear pieces did he make with his eponymous label?
That's the thing. Like it was more fantastical than it was creating a product in my head. But then again, I wasn't around for them times, so someone will have to tell me what was seen on the streets of London.
Yeah.
Times.
Yeah, because Luke, that's what I mean. Like his creativity translates into products when there's an existing brand with existing products that he can work with and play on and create this amazing world around to sell it. But when you just give him his own brand with no things that are already doing well commercially, and like in that context of things doing well commercially, he finds it hard to sell. We've seen that historically. So if he starts his own label, it's probably just the investors understanding that we're doing this for the sake of fashion and fashion history, but we're probably not going to make much money from this. If he starts his brand though, just to support creativity in fashion, I'll probably buy his fragrance. Because I know Luke mentioned that he's negotiating a fragrance as well.
Does Luke work in fashion?
No, I don't think Luke does work in fashion, but Luke is like, John Galliano is his favorite designer from what I understand, so he is the John Galliano correspondent in these live streams. Okay, Luke says, which is why Dior is the best fit for him. It's a shame. Dior was a mutually beneficial relationship, both for the Arnolds and also him. Yeah, true. So that's the thing. It'll be good to see where he goes, because once again, I think if he goes to his eponymous label, I just don't think much money is going to be made there. But if Galliano goes to McQueen, absolutely monumental. If he goes to Fendi, he can do some really interesting things and create an interest in Fendi we haven't seen ever. And I don't know, I feel like he's the kind of guy that likes being at those big brands because of the resources and the ability to do all these crazy things. Like, look at the Margiela collections, how much research he did. And it's just insane, the stuff he was doing at Margiela.
He needs the resources, though. He actually needs them. And
Someone is saying, I think he might retire. He didn't seem like he was going to retire from his statement that I read earlier. In his statement, he said, there has been a lot of speculation around where I will go, but right now I'm just planning to, just gather my thoughts, chill for a bit, and then see what happens next. That sounds like someone that's going to go to a different house soon.
He's definitely going to South Beach. He's taking his talents to South Beach.
Taking his talents to South Beach. Al says Lanvin. Interesting.
No one has spoke about Lanvin in a long time. And Jean Lanvin is probably one of my favorite fashion people in history. Just for the way that she created products, and she created whole lines for like just furniture, like kitchenware, clothes, children, women, men. Like she was the first I think she invented that, to be fair. Yeah. I researched her like intensively.
Yeah, I think when Alba was there, like Alba Elbaz, there was definitely a lot of talk around Lanvin. There was a lot of hype. A lot of people are really interested in the brand, but I think there hasn't been the same interest. There was a time when they were doing kind of like the guest designers, kind of what Jean-Paul Gaultier is doing right now, where a guest designer will come in and design a collection for Lanvin. So we saw many different designers, do their thing. And now it's Peter Coping, right? Peter Coping?
Yeah.
So we haven't seen much from him at Lanvin. So there's not really much to say because we haven't seen, Peter Coping really do much at Lanvin. So I think we just need to remember, we just need to chill and then, wait for him to build that world and then see what he does.
Would he? Okay, here's my thing.
So actually, yeah, that was for AZ Factory. Sorry, the Lanvin was even worse. Sorry, that's why we haven't been talking about Lanvin. Lanvin is the brand that Future was the creative director. Bro, that's how you know I mentally removed that from my head. Bro, Future was the creative director of Lanvin. I actually forgot about that. Oh my god. Thank goodness Peter Coping is the creative director. Oh my gosh. Oh my god, bro.
Galliano for Oscar de la Renta, someone said.
Future is crazy. Like, that was actually insane.
Why are you still there?
Because I just remember, it just dawned on me. Wow, like Future was actually the creative director of Lanvin, and no one gave two fucks about anything he did, bro. His stuff was so like forgettable that like people literally don't even remember that. Like sometimes I remember there was a time when I did mention it one time. That, oh yeah, Future did like a capsule collection and some other stuff at Lanvin. People like, really? Like, people didn't even see the collection. Like, people aren't even aware that it happened.
Would Galliano go to a Kering or a LVMH?
Probably, he's more likely to go to Kering because I think there's less, even though he's made amends, I guess, with Bernard Arnault, there's less drama. Which is why I can see, like, the McQueen thing, I can see the Gucci thing.
Galliano lives for drama, though.
Not that kind of drama, bro.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Not that kind of drama.
No.
Maya says, Fendi Haute Couture hasn't been all that memorable for the right reasons, at least in a while. He'll do some great world building there. Yeah.
You know what? See, every time I say I don't see it, I see I'm amazed. So I personally don't feel the Fendi vibe. However, that's not to say that it wouldn't happen and he wouldn't create an amazing world. But a world without fur, I don't know, man. That's the thing. Like, would he bring back fur? Will he make Peter?
Luke says, what?
Peter
the only other house I see him going to is Balenciaga. I don't see Demna leaving Balenciaga anytime soon,
Ever.
and they are definitely not firing Demna would have to like be like, okay, I'm leaving. So until that happens, I don't see any Balenciaga Galliano moment.
Can you put on the spring Couture 2018 show? Do you have that loaded up?
I can look for it now, but one thing I will say though is that Balenciaga Haute Couture by Galliano, oof.
Ooh,
Oh my
damn,
gosh, would be insane.
damn.
Because I know Galliano would go through the archives, he'll be doing so much research, he'll be looking at the tech. Because something that Galliano does that I love is he really, really researches techniques that designers use in history. That's why, even with this new show,
Oh
even though
wow.
he's very aware of, he's been using the bias cuts forever, he still said that he was still, till today, he still
Learn.
finds out new things about the bias cut and different ways that you can use it and different ways that you can, manipulate fabrics using it. So the way he would,
Bro,
study
no,
Cristobal Balenciaga's techniques, oh my gosh.
no. I remember I was watching the video with him with the students, and they didn't really peep what he was saying because, like, obviously, like he was looking at Mademoiselle Vianney and everything like that. I was like, he said that he was cut, like he learned and he looked at the fabrics that she had, and then they cut down the weave, and that's how he was able to stitch
Oh
together.
yeah, when he was talking about, yeah, like cutting across the grain versus, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
the way I held my no, because I had to mute my mic to because I let out audible scream because him at like you know what I'm saying? No
Yeah.
way, no way. Him at Balenciaga would be crazy, fam.
No, him at Balenciaga would be insanity. Actually, like those are. I don't care too much to go to shows, but if he was at Balenciaga, I would do everything in my power to try be at those couture shows. Because, bro, that would actually be insane. Yeah, Luke says he's been studying the techniques of the old masters since the 80s at St. Martin's. He's obsessive about it. Yeah. Let me
Madam
see,
Gray,
Dammy. What collection did you want me to put on the screen? And
2018.
actually, we can watch the MA interview actually, because I'm sure a few people haven't seen it. Because today is Galliano Day.
Bro, I've watched that 3 times.
No, no, no. I watch it constantly, bro.
No word
Literally
of a lie. Like
constantly, bro.
when
It's
when
so
he has
good.
these muses stand and like he's talking about the
And talk about,
yeah,
yeah.
oh fam. No, because he invigorates me with a love for the art and
Your
creativity in fabric.
creative inner sanctum at Maison Margiela here on Place des Etats-Unis. This is
Let
your
me turn it down so people can hear our commentary on top.
where your creative process unfolds
Yeah.
and where your
Oh,
ideas
okay.
come to life. We are joined by 8 students, MA Fashion Design from colleges around Europe and the UK. We're also joined by 2 people who mean a lot to John, his muses, Valentine and Thomas.
Thank you, guys.
And I think I'm going to start by asking you,
Let me
what's
just
your
skip
relationship?
because I think
And it's the first
Galliano.
dress
There we
in
go.
a day. I don't know, no one's ever followed that, but it must be
Yeah,
hundreds
I
of
believe the students
thousands.
ask
There's an
questions first,
empathy, I think, when we're working as
or is
well,
it
which is
after?
quite rare to find.
I can't really remember.
Sometimes you can find great people, but they're real chatterboxes. You know, when you're trying to work something out, they kind of know when to just keep strum, which is really respectful. But they don't stop speaking with their body. So the way that Thomas will reach for a pocket or miss it or not, it starts to tell me what's wrong there, or just the way Valentine is standing or a position she takes. Or, so we've developed like a shorthand, if you like, where I can still concentrate and try and find solutions. And then doing so many collections as well, I've grown to somewhat rely on them as well. I mean, there's so many fittings, and then or your team is taking notes, but then you might come back to that fitting like 3 weeks later because it's taken that long to make the adjustments, corsets, something like that. It takes time. And sometimes I forget. So Valentine will remind me, oh, you did this and you did that. Remind us all.
Oh yeah, Dami, do you know something I remember that was really interesting in his research for this collection? Because I also went to the Margiela Risi when the show happened in Paris. So for people that don't know, sometimes, not all of the time, but sometimes brands do Risis of their collection. So what it is sometimes it's the day of, sometimes it's the day after. They invite like journalists, influencers, guests, whoever, friends, to come and see the collection, but in like an installation format where all the garments are there. There's information about the garments. There's the research there, sometimes even patterns, different things. So I went to the Risi and there was a lot of research in historically corsetry for women, but also for men, which is why he talks about this idea of all his shows being co-ed. And he talks about his research in making these shows co-ed. And it's down to literally the way that he, does research for corsetry, like doing corsetry for both men and women and seeing how they've been made for both men and women and taking from that to inform this collection because there was corsetry for both men and women. So I'm not sure if he mentioned it in this interview, but it's something interesting.
You know what he did mention, though? He mentioned his muses teaching all the other models how to breathe in corsets because the corsets were so tight, and it obviously transformed the silhouette and created that image that you have. But that on par, well, the male muse is gonna come out, but yeah, I think it's at 5 minutes, I believe, when his male muse comes out, something like that.
Yeah.
Ditto Thomas, some of the more complex things, the gestural things that he has kind of given birth to and created. So he reminds us as well, which keeps us on our toes. I mean, right through to the end of the process. I mean, we do lighting checks with them, mood checks, walk checks. Everything we create, we do with these two. And then they share all that with the eventual casting. So when they come in, if there's a certain mood or stance or way of walking, they'll share that with the muses that come in, which is really fun. And voila.
John, in the Artisanal 2024 show in January, you created this technique called emotional cutting.
He's going to talk about this emotional cutting thing, which is interesting. But isn't it so funny that because Galliano pronounces artisanal as artisanal, everyone that interviews him now says artisanal? It's like the influence of John Galliano. We're going to all start speaking like him.
I love it. That's the ski right there.
That's John Galliano law.
Which is what you were describing before, the kind of gestures that you put into pulling up a hem or, sort of pushing down a pocket, or the unconscious and conscious things that we kind of do to our clothes to convey feelings and so on. I would love for you to tell us and maybe show us how that happens in this room when you're doing it.
I mean, it started off, there's a board over there, the second board, which is just some of the influences, the stillness and
shout out to my brother Tomas.
photography of Brassai, some characters of low-life Parisian society of that time. Thinking about where the collection was happening, which was by the Seine and under the
John
bridge,
Galliano's choice of words sometimes makes me cringe. Bro said low life society.
Oh.
So different things happen from, show me, Thomas, that you're trying to avoid, you don't want the hems of your trousers to get wet because you're jumping over a puddle, to Valentine, it's really cold. You've been up for 2 days, 2 nights, and you're coming back from the best time of your life. Or you've been caught unawares, so you've come out and you've just grabbed what looks like your boyfriend's cardigan. So every character you saw in the last defile, that's not styling. The clothes are actually cut like that. You just simply put a hand in a pocket, and that's it, you're fixed, or the cardigan, or whatever it is, to help tell the stories. They're like my kind of, you know, silent actors, and the clothes of the script.
The emotional cutting, like I remember we had that day where we just spent the whole night, you know, trying to get into, indeed, the setting that you just described, where, you know, it's moonlit, it's cold, you kind of, you know, you're sneaking around the Seine, and then, you know, all these, you know, John just sits there, sort of like saying things, and there's music, usually kind of too loud. You kind of can't hear John anymore, and then, you know, you just...
I do it so I can't hear all the others around me. So
but that's the thing, like, because John does his storytelling with clothes, it's, you know, you have a lot of things to help you. So, you know, he puts a hat on you and just squish it down so you can almost, you know, it blurs your vision, and that already helps you. And it's just like, okay, you're walking.
So something I love about this is not new to this collection. It's very much something that John Galliano does all the time. Like, it's almost, a lot of his shows look like performance arts. The films look that way. Some of them, they're basically films. It's so interesting to see this relationship between the models and the muses, and how they truly, truly understand what John Galliano is trying to achieve in the show, down to the kind of gestures they should be using, the kind of emotions that they are supposed to be bringing forward. That to me is like, it's taking me back to when I first got into fashion, and the way that models used to be, where models used to sometimes channel an emotion. When you look at old Alexandre McQueen shows, you know what I mean? Nowadays, modeling bores me to death, because models just, some of them don't even know how to walk properly. They just wear the clothes. There's no emotion. There's no nothing. It's just nothingness. So that is something I really love, to see this relationship with the models and the muses, and to really see that they truly understand what he's trying to achieve through this collection. And that's why they were able to so effectively translate that onto the runway, which is why then it became such a big show. So that's something that is really, really interesting for me, at least, to observe. Dami, any thoughts before we continue watching?
Yeah, I was looking for the collection, essentially, where he was talking, well, not where he was talking, but it was one of the pivotal collections in terms of, like, just how the show was presented and the actual mood that the models were, yeah, just illuminating. Essentially, it's like it was like a sailor outfit that was kind of in latex. It was like around 2018 time. Like, it was either before or after the Spring Couture 2018 show. But one of the main things was the value he put in the characterization and the personality of each person walking down the runway. So it really harkens back to a time in the supermodel era where people would be like glorified in a way in terms of how they walked down the runway. And obviously today that's not necessarily the case anymore, but what he did was, you know, add that back in, and then the models each had their own characterizations. And this comes to, you know, today what we're talking about with Thomas and all of his other muses, right? Or should I say his other muse, whereby he's working closely with them and they understand him, and that interconnectivity, right? And it also kind of fashions the way that, yeah, he adds the characterizations to his clothes. So when I'm talking to like other young designers, I told them to look at this video and say, listen, like he's talking about the lived experience in clothes. Maybe you can't afford a muse today, but understand how people are actually going to live in the designs that you're creating. Of course, you want to make art in quotes, but there is a value of understanding. Listen, this person wants to sit. Does this person stand most of the time? Do they hunch? And all of these other things, right, that we learned from Balenciaga and now from Galliano.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's continue.
In the rain, so you're trying to imagine that moment, and at some point, you know, you really get into it and you forget that anyone is in the room and you're really in that moment. And I think it's the same for Valentine. You just kind of grow into those things, and before you know it,
He hasn't stopped. I don't know if you've noticed, he's given you about 7 different gestures,
you
just
kind
talking.
But that's the thing, like, John then says, okay, let's photograph it like this, and then it's like this very tense moment of like, oh shit, we have to get to the photo set without moving the pleats that we just made, because, you know, that is what we're trying to understand here, is like how does that appear, and how does that become real? What this world means to Valentine and what this world means to me, you live it. It's really a strange thing that can occur, I think.
Be very careful the team you surround yourself with.
So I just wanted to quickly touch on, because I've been commenting, but I'll rather just say, like when Luke said the industry sacrificed its standards for the sake of body diversity, I don't think that's the issue. I think you can be plus size and be an amazing model, and you can like really show the emotion and bring forth the ideas that a designer had. It has absolutely nothing to do with size. I just think models these days are not... I feel like models these days think their job is to just kind of like pose in front of a camera and just be a face. Whereas there was a time when models actually helped tell the story of designers, and they saw themselves that way, and there was a collaborative effort. Like if you think of all the muses, even going all the way back to designers in the 20th century, how closely they used to work with models, and there was always like this collective effort on, okay, how are you going to wear this? How are you going to do that? I just think that doesn't exist anymore. I think there's a lazy way that we view modeling these days, and the way that, you know, models walk, or the way models wear clothes, or if they should even have any say, or if they should show any emotion on the runway. I just think it's more an issue of a lack of creativity from both the designers and the models, rather than it having anything to do with size. That's why I mentioned Gwendolyn Christie, because Gwendolyn Christie is bigger than your average, you know, size 0 model. She's also quite tall, but she looked amazing when she worked with John Galliano, and she also really helped to bring the ideas forward. So once again, it's nothing to do with being plus size or not plus size. That's not the issue. I think it's an overall lack of creativity and interesting ideas that's killing modeling more so than anything else, and just like a lack of effort across the board.
Can I just talk about this quickly? Like, and
oh yeah, for sure.
It starts in the design studio, right? And these designers, they have dress forms, and their dress forms are generally size 0 or maybe a 2 if we're lucky, right? And now people have to fit and worm their way into the designer's clothes, and they're basing their casting off of who can actually fit in what they're creating. And then that's where we have this more so lounge aesthetic, and the proliferation of it is based on because people don't feel comfortable in designer clothes more than they did way back when designer clothes were actually the height of what people could create. And if you just like take the snapshot even further back, when, you know, Balenciaga and, you know, that whole batch, they were working with their clientele, and they formed their dress sense, their codes around what their clientele would be, not just their lifestyle. But I remember there was this one story about Balenciaga having this old lady that was one of his clients, and she had this hunch in her back, and then he would design for her, and then it would look like she's actually standing straight up and there was no more hunch there. But that's not what these people are doing, right? So when you say exactly that, what you said, it's like there is a lack of creativity, but also a lack of care and value for people living in the things that you're creating, right? And that's what kind of Galliano's putting in there. So when people say, oh yeah, you know, size 0, this, like, it's designers should be able to create for most all body types and make them still look beautiful. Obviously
100%.
that is like in the most ideal world, but this is the thing about having a design sensibility. It's like, how much do you value the people that are wearing your things? And then on the model side, it's mostly like having the genification, as in the Kylie genification, right? So it's like having a doll person with a face actually wearing the clothes. And it's like, okay, yeah, you have someone who has bare followers on Instagram walking down the road, but walking down the runway, but what do they stand for? Or should I say,
That's the
what do they
thing. So
walk
you
for?
notice those kind of models don't walk for Galliano, because can you imagine if we exchange these muses and put like Kylie Jenner and Kim Kardashian in their place to talk about the gestures of John Galliano? How do you
Bro,
think that conversation would go?
it goes so differently, and because we have more influencers run down the way than, you know, actual people that see this modeling as a profession rather than a post on Instagram, there isn't this massive value in, yo, my body is the instrument that I use to actually perform for the designs and the story that is being told by the designer. So the question designers have to ask themselves is, what story am I actually telling? And then the models question that they have to ask themselves is, how am I going to personify the story? And if neither of them are doing that job, or if none of that is being communicated, then we kind of get dull shows that, oh, we have to be hyper vigilant and concentrate on the actual clothes, for instance. And sometimes the clothes that are going down the runway aren't that valuable in the first place. It's just that we're getting a lot of eyes on them.
And this is a very good point, by the way. Like, models want to be the bad bitch in Dior or whatever, not bring the meaning of the clothes to life. But at the same time, these CDs aren't putting story into the clothes, so there's not much to work with. And that's exactly kind of what you said, Dami, where it's a two-way street. And if the designers don't even have any story to start with, as a model, there's not really much to work with either. Which is why earlier I said it's a lack of creativity from both sides, the models and the designers. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that brands these days just want to do the bare minimum, which is fine, but that's why they won't be regarded on the same level as people like Galliano, right?
Mic drop. But yeah, let's go back to the video.
Because when you get it right, that's when the magic can happen.
Indeed.
Valentine, do you want to? Valentine's
So we got this cardigan. So John was showing me some.
I love this part, by the way.
Some Brassai photographies, and he gave me this cardigan and told me to wear it in a way that it was cold, next to La Seine. It was by night, so I just grabbed it and it that way, and this is how it came out.
And then it's cut like this, right, John?
The cardigan was just straight. In this case, it's quite a traditional cardigan. We wanted to keep a realness to it, and the finishing, which is this peel that makes it look kind of really old. The idea that it had been maybe an ancestral hand-me-down or belonged to her lover. And the narrative starts, you know, why has she appeared by the Seine? Completely done up in this corset, that this cardigan that's been put on, dressed in haste. So again, you start to build the narrative with the elements that could have an effect on the clothes. Obviously, this cardigan's been rained on, and she's loved it to death. She was kind of loving this stuff at one point as well in the pictures. An old friend, loved to death teddy bear or doll.
Your muses are sort of...
That was a strong reference point, I remember, in this collection, right? The reference to the dolls, because that obviously was what inspired Pat McGrath to make that sort of glass-like skin that's supposed to model a porcelain look. And that was something I also saw in the Risi, like all these different historical dolls that John Galliano had in his references, and they recreated those makeup looks quite specifically for the show.
Choreographed, but also very much inject themselves into it, according to the garments that you create for them.
Yeah, so I work with a guy, a movement director called Pat P. And sometimes for the younger models who haven't done such a show, and because it's not on a runway, you're as close as you are to me, and there's a certain parcours to walk around. You have to remember with the photographers of the film, the videos. You have to remember. There's quite a lot of information, and sometimes then, especially with a corset and then heels, you're really asking a lot of a young muse. Although they did come in for corset training, which was done in the most professional way we could, where we understood the correct way of breathing, where to place your diaphragm, and then only to breathe from there up. So it was almost like Pilates. And we shared as much information as both Thomas and Valentine on the easiest way to stand while you were putting the corset on, and different timings. We'd have like three, halfway, 3/4, and then the full. And of course, some of my musics walk like angels, but as I said, sometimes it was challenging, especially we did a little section that was inspired by all the broken dolls. And so together we were working with some muses that, they were great in the
Like, bro,
heels.
look at
That
how
was
the
really
models
good.
are walking.
And
It's
then
like,
the
bro.
corset separately. When you put the corset and the heel together, it just became something that was very alien to them. But we coaxed them through, and we actually turned it into a bit of a choreography. So they were a little bit wobbly, so they'd walk, and when they were feeling they were going over, we'd just say, well, hold that broken pose, just hold it, center yourself, breathe, then take the next 4 steps, and then break again. So that feeling that they were going to go over, that horrible, anxious, that they could have just fallen, was turned into a shape. And I think they pulled it off really well. And this is something that we worked out with these guys as well. So everyone got round the circuit in one piece, which was good. Thomas got it immediately and just stood there and did this thing, this, shape. And I was like, what's going on here? What's going on? So I reached out to Olivia. I went, check him out. What's he doing? What's he doing? We were both like, and then he starts this walk. This is before we've even created the outfit.
How do you make sure that you keep evolving in your design?
I want to skip to this part because I remember you had something really interesting at this
Surrounding
point.
myself with like-minded people, young people as well. Getting out there. It's important to stay connected with what's going on out there. You may be at the most fabulous art school or fashion school, and that's one part of it's really important, but getting out there is even more important, and meeting like-minded people, graphic artists, sculptors, painters, hang with them as well. I think that it's very important. So I still like to go out, and I still do my little research trips, and as Anders mentioned, we're allowed to take 5 to 6, I think, stages for a year, and they're really included in all the process from A to Z. And for me, that's important that they get to see that. And it's just really interesting to see, feel, hear how they see. And vice versa, I think they quite like some of the old tricks that I know, but I'm also learning too, and I never stop that. And I think that's what can help to keep you relevant, and that you have something to say.
Yeah, what do you do when you feel stuck with your work, or when you start doubting yourself?
Do you want the good news now? You never stop doubting yourself. We all have moments of doubt, don't we? I mean, I think that's only natural. But I think it's how you manage it and channel it. It can turn into a positive. Try and keep notes of things. Ideas come at strange moments, as you know. Keep notes, keep a notebook, keep a sketchbook every day, and just keep putting it in there, and then you'll find when that moment comes where you have to put something together, that initial seed is already planted, your body almost knows it. Like many artists, when they first produce their first album.
Someone mentioned the website. Yeah, we're going to look at the website after. The Margiela website's really cool. is really, really interesting. I want to see if I can
Can,
skip to where's the part where he started really talking about like going
which one?
into the creative stuff. Wait, let me see.
I wanted to say something, right? While you look for that,
Yeah, go on.
because when he's talking about the movement and the gestures and the way that the models are standing, one thing that is ever important, especially as an artist, right? And it's so funny because every time I talk to fashion designers, they low-key hate that, or not even hate, but they don't really take to the idea that it's good to be able to be a good artist in terms of drawing and putting pen to paper. And obviously it's quite an old-fashioned thing, fairly, like,
Yeah.
but but at the same time, like, going to life drawing and understanding gestures is important. And then on top of that, like, I remember when I was in animation school, there was these things called live action video, which is being able to project onto like an animation, like a doll or maquette or anything like that, actual gestures, right? And you would create these videos, and it will either be you in your bedroom or you recording other people, and
Yeah.
figuring out how people actually move within space and that discovery process. So when he talks about this, it just like fills me with that understanding that he cares about, one, the way that people move, but also that like there is this art refining process, because he's been doing this for so many years at Margiela, right? I remember he was talking about the rapping one season, right? I believe that was 2016, and then
Yeah.
2018 the characterization come, or spring 2020 was a characterization, and then now we get all of these things. But it started very, very small within his collections and it's evolved over time. So yeah, I like that he has the value and understanding gesture and like personification and characterization.
Also, we're so hard on these designers for not being creative enough, but it's really above them. It's the industry itself. They are really just doing what they asked to do. I agree and then disagree at the same time. So I definitely agree with the overall sentiment that the issue is, there's a wider issue with the industry and where it's going. However, I do think that everything is a choice, right? Like at CSM, you, in your graduate collection, you have to do a minimum number of looks. You don't have to do a footwear collection. You don't have to do certain accessories, but there are still designers that will make a fragrance and will make a footwear collection and will do all that extra shit, even though that's not actually part of what they are initially graded on, and they don't need to do that. They do that because that's their conviction and they're trying to tell a full story. And the full story can't be told unless they do the footwear, so they'll do the extra work. That's the kind of designer that Galliano is. He's like, I'm trying to tell the full story, so this has to come with this, and this has to come with this, and the set has to be like this, and the models have to do this, and the gestures have to be like this. That to me is the sign of like a top creative. I think doing the bare minimum, yes, you can get away with it, but I think that, it's an excuse, because not every designer does that. Everywhere Galliano has gone, he's been this same way, right? There are designers that everywhere they go, they still add a very high level of creativity. I think J.W. Anderson is the same way. So I agree that it is a symptom of the industry, but I also think that designers can do more than just the bare minimum and just create like a ultra commercial, no emotion, no ideas, no creativity collection and just churn it out. It's just a choice. Everything to me is a choice. I don't like to give designers that much credit. I mean, designers are sometimes harshly critiqued a bit too far, but in this case, I think that we're not just going to give them credit for just, making a collection, because at the end of the day, they're designers.
Okay, I really want to speak about this. I guess there's two separate lots in here, because when I heard designers, I thought we were talking about like possibly students as well as, but maybe we're just talking about like premier designers, right? And I sincerely believe that we aren't hard on designers at all in general. Not for real. We critique their collections, but we don't actually push the needle when it comes to necessarily buying or not buying, because we're not their consumer base, for instance. And if their consumer base is reacting to what they're creating, then they are adding value, and positively or negatively, right? But I guess in terms of like when it comes to the student side, it's like what you need is ingenuity, because I can't speak for the, all of this premiere and all of, because sometimes, or should I say,
Quick
I would never
question though. Quick question.
is it
Because the thing about designers adding value though is that are they? Because if you look at the financials of most brands, what's selling is not what the designers design. So when Virginie Viard was selling, billions at Chanel, what was selling was the perfumes that she didn't make and the bag designs that existed before her and she didn't make. So, you know what I mean? Are they adding value, or is that just a symptom of just the commercial, you know, machine of the brands that they work at?
all right? So premier designers, right? Like, so that's why I said positively or negatively, because they can look at us, and my question would be how much do we actually push the needle in critiquing a Virginie Viard collection negatively?
Uh-huh.
And I would say not much. Like, but there is like an overwhelming resounding sound that, let's say, if several of us agree, then the fashion public looks at that, or should I say the people that buy into these things look at that and they say, oh, people that are really into fashion don't really like this collection, then maybe we shouldn't buy it. That's really the only way that us speaking about it negatively or critiquing it can push the needle. However, when it comes to premier designers, it's very hard for me to say that we're hard on them, and then it would be difficult for me to say that they're not adding value, because the value can be added negatively or positively. It just depends on how we perceive it. So
Mm.
they can be continuing doing their job, and like you were saying, like let's put it in the student example, right? You're being graded on this and this, and they're being graded on what is selling, what are you creating, are you making the things that we want to see on the runway as a business, right? So that we can, shop this to our clientele so that they can keep buying these bags or keep buying these jackets or keep buying these perfumes or fragrances. And if they're taking off what the hard work that they're supposed to be putting in is, then I guess they're adding value to somebody, or else they would be fired, because we've seen people get fired for, not doing the bare minimum, for instance. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, the interesting thing though is that it can be very interesting to see like what the direct value is, because like I said, there are some brands that what is selling has absolutely nothing to do with what the designer is creating. Like let's say Chanel. We've seen that recently, like it's the flat bags and the fragrances that are selling. But then you have other brands like let's say Alaya, for example. What is trending right now are the Alaya ballet, mesh shoes. That was literally created by Pietro Muglia. So you can literally say that, you know, the sales increase is as a direct result of what the designer is doing. So I think for different designers and different brands, it's different degrees of impact to me. Because I think some brands, it doesn't matter who designs there. You could have a mushroom designing there. The Chanel fragrances and flat bags are still going to sell.
yeah. And this is the thing, right? Like, and just to talk on the young designer side, it's like I speak to designers pretty much every day, right? And I just got off the phone to a couple, and yo, man out here are just grafting. Like, everyone is grafting, fam. And it's the end of the year, it's Christmas, but yo, I know designers that work year round just trying to get it in, making money how they can, right? And then so that they can create collections. And everyone is locked in. But one of the main things is like you're not gonna be able to look at Galliano or look at JW Anderson or look at Bottega and say, yo, I want to do fragrances and a watch and I want to build this whole world, when you've got like £3,000 to work with. You're gonna need to go down to brass tacks and say, yo, what are the things that I want to grade myself on? And then roll that over to the next collection, because you're creating a business at the end of the day. And
Right.
you're adding, what the type of value you're adding is to a small circle of people that are intrigued in your particular process. And this doesn't really go down to fashion designers. This is like creative industry in general, right? And it's like this live stream is important, right? In terms of how you run your business aisle. And then for me, painting is important, and making videos for my painters is important, right? So what is really running, your small circle, so that you can get to the idea of building a world and, being able to do all of these things. But we can't be looking at the premier people and saying, yo, I want to do that now, when John Galliano is literally 3 times some of our ages. So it's like, where are we actually looking? Which is why it's so.
Oh yeah, facts. But I will say, and this is why I don't give designers, like I said, credit. Like I don't want to give them credit, because and I know that, because I graduated from CSM literally last year. I saw collections from kids that didn't have £10 in their bank account that was so good. I was like, yeah, from now on, there's no excuse if you work at a luxury brand, because like the stuff I was seeing from some of the students that I went to school with, I'm like, how? And they'll be like, I met this person in this shop and they kind of just liked my idea. So they gave me a free roll of fabric, and then I went to this place and I managed to get thread, and I went to this place and I managed to get this. And then you see the end result and you're like, what the
Yeah,
what?
That's what I'm talking about, fam.
Which is why I do not give these designers credit. That's why sometimes like people say, oh, you're like big designers who are at the biggest houses.
Okay.
Yeah, the premier designers.
I was like, fam, the younger ones are killing it out here. I'm
talking about the premier designers. So that's why I don't give them excuses, and that's why sometimes on these live streams it can come across like I'm being harsh, because most of the industry is like, oh my god, but did you see that bag though? Like, know that documentary that Jeremy Newson made, where there was that journalist that said, remember, there's always something to like.
I remember that. I think you done a Patreon on that.
Even if it's a sock. Yeah.
Subscribe to the Patreon.
So it's very much one of those things where a lot of the industry is like that, and that's why kind of what you were saying, where you said, or you feel like designers, we don't critique designers harshly enough or whatever.
I don't think we do.
That's mainly it. I think if you compare fashion to any other medium, like creative medium, we are definitely the most lax, because the way, let's say, people are critiqued by music journalists or music media, or the way people are critiqued in the art world is harsh compared to fashion, definitely.
Yeah, the art world is definitely the bottom. Like, but that's the thing, right? In terms of value added, I do believe that fashion media does critique it more than it would, let's say, the art industry. I do believe the music industry, though, critiques the music artists way harsher, in terms of like, and not harsh, but like, if someone isn't good, you're really prepared to say that this person isn't good. Why do they have $1 million deal, for instance? Because their deals are public. Whereas with these designers, we don't know how much they're making. Like, we can infer, like, what I'm saying? Like, there's this new saying that people always say, is like, I won't tell you when I make $1 million, but there will be signs. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we don't know how much they're making per se, but we can infer that they're making a lot. And then based on the financials of these public companies, we should be able to say, okay, this company makes 500 million or $1 billion. And then when this designer got there, they're at 3. But what is this designer actually creating, and what are they actually adding? Is it just the business side that's doing really well? Or is it the designer that's actually adding the value? Like you said with Peter Mulier, right? It's like he added value straight away. But that the same can't be said for many of these designers that are at premier brands, or should I say the biggest luxury brands in the world. And we're not seeing much. Like, they're not pushing the needle there. But yeah, no, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I mean, it's not critiquing to be mean. It's critiquing to help people improve. What I mean by that is, like, even when I was in school, it was more of like, when you critique work, you have to consider, and this is something that I think most people don't do, maybe because it's like something you learn when you study fashion journalism formally, but like, it's this idea of, you're not just reviewing the work itself. Like, just because a designer says I'm inspired by this and this, that's one stage. But then the next stage is to then go and read those books and to see that art and see if what they are doing actually makes sense. Just because they say, you know, I was inspired by brutalism, if all they are doing is, you know, a white shirt and they're calling that brutalism, then it's a terrible interpretation of what that is. And it's not really that interesting of an interpretation also. That's the next level of, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's another thing where you're helping designers, you're critiquing them to help them improve, because at that point you're then saying that there's not much validity to saying that this is an interpretation of brutalism when it's just a white t-shirt. You know what I mean? There's no texture to the fabric. There's nothing interesting other than it's just a color. And you've kind of tried to take something that's basic and simple, and you've tried to add value to it after by mentioning something like brutalism to try and give something that doesn't have meaning. And that's something that I try to do sometimes. It's not really just about what designers say. It's like, okay, cool, you said that, but in the context of what you're trying to do, how does that make sense?
And that is where because this is a funny thing, right? That's where I critique these new designers in, like, today. It's like, you are making something and then trying to create the story. So, and there's a lot of people that just haven't lived enough life yet to tell a beautiful story. And then there was a question I always asked with my friends, like when we would just be in cafes and things of that nature, right? I would just ask them, does what we're saying need to exist? And like, that's a deep personal philosophical question, right? But it's like, we grew up in the world of content where everything is being pushed out constantly. Okay, in the sea of content, is this adding to the muck, or is this like a beautiful pearl that people can discover once it's being created? And if you can't answer that question honestly, then, you know, you're not really actually creating in the artist way that you say that you want to create. And there's a lot of guys out here, guys being gender neutral, right? A lot of guys out here that are creating and they are only trying to add substance afterwards, and it's like trying to put like a honey on a turd. Like, people, you can't make the rubbish sweet. You have to make it, you have to make good things and then, you know, put the honey on it so that people can be attracted to it because you have great storytelling. And I don't want to go on a rant, but I can. But yeah.
Go for it. That's why I love the streams. It's a medium where you can talk and just keep talking. You don't have to, it doesn't end after 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's like, okay, we grew up in the sustainability era, right? I remember when people were making all of these things and saying it's sustainable. And it's like,
headache.
Vegan this, sustainable that. And then, you know, and then that was when, oh man, I love the era when me and you were just like looking on like the product details of like these clothes, and it's like, wait, that's plastic. And then we look up polyamide and we're like, wait, you're saying this is vegan leather, but it's plastic. And it's like, so wait, which is worse, the leather or the plastic? And then we started having this discussion, and then it continues, and now we call it green.
Plastic is way worse than like leather that is derived from the waste product of the meat industry,
bro. And then it's like, oh, this fashion week is fur free or it's animal product free, but in reality, I'm looking at the fur on the runway, and that is where it can only exist. Or I'm looking at the leather on the runway because that's where it can only exist, because that isn't going to be in someone's closet archive and someone call it vintage 30 years from now, because the plastic will crumble in the person's hand once it's been bought. And the shoulder, you know, like when you have a rubbish leather jacket and it's just like chipping at the shoulders because it's been worn and all of these other things. Yeah. It's like, we aren't existing in a time and a place where you can say something is sustainable when the reality is a good sustainable material lasts for decades.
Exactly.
And that's for me, when we were going through that was just like a characterization of the times we were in, and in saying like, listen, you're making this today, but will it live tomorrow? And if it can't, then in quotes, that's unsustainable.
Literally nothing sustainable about it. by definition. But people get too used to ticking boxes. It's like and that is the same. It's the same mentality of someone, the kind of person that designs a t-shirt and adds meaning to it after, is the same type of person that would design a plastic thing and call it vegan leather and say it's sustainable. It's the same person.
Yeah, and that is like today, like there's not one designer in my like Rolodex that can come to me with that type of BS and think I'm gonna stand for it. Like they literally do not exist where I'm at, and it's like because they know like, oh, I can't bring Damilare just anything. Like once the idea is like that is the kind of like value that needs to be added to, you know, our small circles, because yeah, we are creating for these little worlds, but at the same time it's like 10 years down the line, are me and you gonna look at this and say, oh yeah, that was hard? Like, and if we're not gonna do that, then why are we even trying right now? We're literally breaking sweat. We're using our P's from our day job to make these creative like items, and then this isn't even gonna last 5 years for us to look at it. No, man. Like, we need to like relax with all of that type of stuff and actually create the things that really matter to us today. Are we really living in the context of our time or just the moment? And those are two completely different things. I know they sound the same, but like, if we're not living in the context of our times, if we can't create value to our communities, we're just living in the moment because that is what's popping and that is what our people want to see on live, or that's what people want to see, you know, on TikTok. Like, we ain't making for TikTok over here, fam. TikTok is not going to be around 30 years from now, and we're not going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of our feeds to our grandchildren and be like, yo, this is what I made. It got 1 million views in 2024. 2024. No,
TikTok is literally going to be outlawed in the US very soon.
Yeah, it's like let's relax, let's chill. If we don't have a good idea yet, let's cook. You know what I'm saying, fam? Let the stew, like, you know what I'm saying? Let the stew slowly, because you know when your mum is like, yo, don't touch the stew yet, man. It's not ready. You can't eat your rice yet now. No. The meat still needs to like stew properly, fam. You can't eat yet. You can't eat yet, fam. This needs to cook properly. Do you want to be eating hard oxtail, or do you want to be eating super sweet and succulent oxtail, fam? Think about it. When you understand what I'm saying, you understand life, man.
Yeah. And Luke is also, I appreciate a designer like Phoebe Fowler who will say it's just a jacket. Yeah, I do too. Because what happens is that the pseudo fake intellectual designers try it and then I'll critique it, and then people say I mean or I don't understand someone's work. But it's like, not only do I understand it, I actually read the book that they said they referenced, and there's still nothing there, even after going through that process. Okay, Luke says, meanwhile, her fans intellectualize everything she does. Yeah, that is something I see on social media too. People like to over-intellectualize designers that they love the most. It's kind of strange. It's really, really strange. People can't take themselves out of the fact that you love this designer, but that one thing that they did wasn't actually that great. People struggle to do that sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes we create because we just wanted to see the thing exist, fam. We just wanted to know we could do it. We could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's cool. Like, you made something fun for yourself, isn't it? So yeah, man, we should always have fun with what we create. But obviously, people around us will intellectualize things. And I don't know whether it's a bad thing to intellectualize something. However, it is a bad thing to say, oh, you just don't understand, when the person themselves said, listen, I just made this because I wanted to make it. It's like, it doesn't need to be that deep sometimes. Like, and that's what happens with the, I don't know, Demnophiles. I don't know what to call them.
I mean, Demna has literally said it himself. He said, no, like, a lot of these things, there is no me. Like, he said it in an interview. I can bring up the interview now. He said, a lot of it doesn't actually have that much meaning. They're just ideas that I find interesting. And I want to create something about these ideas that come to my mind. So I don't know why people then go out of their way to be like, because when you think of consumerism and the commentary on consumerism and how he's talking about capitalism, and it's like, bro, it is a t-shirt with an internet logo on it?
No, he's talking about the way that our lives they're molded by. It's like, please, let's sit down, fam. It's an
I
IKEA.
think everything can be contextualized, but I also think some people stay out of that conversation because they are not equipped. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think you can. So there's a difference between contextualizing something for like a conversation about a wider socio-political thing that's going on. That's very different to giving credit to a designer for thinking about a certain thing. You know what I mean? So in the context of a fashion review, you can say, and this is part of a wider socio-political idea of so-and-so, but you can't say this designer was saying that. You know what I mean? Those are two completely different conversations that you are having. But I think a lot of what people do is they do the latter thing, where they say this designer say, and they bring the designer's ideas into that political context that it actually wasn't in. So I think that's the bigger issue.
Yeah, no, I'm done. Let's listen to some Galliano some more, fam.
Yeah, let's listen to some more bourgeoisie, artisanal.
And then like 18, 19, they have all those years to pour out the agony, the angst, the happiness, you know, and it flows really fast. And then they have to do their second album, and they're only 19 or 20, and they haven't had that time of life. But the record producers want the next album. There's very few that will step back and say, well, you know what? I think I need another 4 or 5 years to live. And we can't do that, but Sino can. But we can, but yeah, it's just having time for yourself, I think, to replenish. It's really important.
I wanted to know, how do you unite your creative integrity with commercial demands? Like, how do you balance between what you want to create as a designer and what consumers want to see and buy?
It is a crazy timetabling that we have for ready-to-wear, for sure, because the dates are written in stone. You know, you have your market dates, and that collection has to be in the showroom at that, and show dates, and that can't change. But what I find when I first came to Maison Margiela, that there was a small collection, and it was called Artisanal, which was still a little bit bricolage, but super interesting. But having been brought up in couture, we kind of little by little turned it into that, which gave me a little bit more time to define a line, develop a technique, a little bit more time, which could be hugely inspirational and beneficial when translated for the other collections, which do have commercial objectives, and yeah, to be a success, you have to tick all those boxes. And as you're developing the artisanal, you can see some things, or you feel just the energies around you. People say, oh, that's really cool, I wish I could have that. We take like mental notes, and some things, whether it's a shape, a sleeve, the way it's been set in, or a technique that's evolved, we start to drip feed into the ready-to-wear teams, who then, as I'm still working on this, they're trying to find industrial solutions to some of those techniques so they can be affordable, and the clothes that we want to wear.
That's so interesting what Galliano said about the way that they take the artisanal collections and the couture techniques and find a way. So even before they've even finished the process of making those collections, they are already drip feeding the ideas to the ready-to-wear team so that they can work hard to try and find ways to make those ideas cheaper and those techniques cheaper, so it's, viable and at a ready-to-wear price. That's interesting how exactly they do that.
Yeah, and if you look just on the, just on the collections that precede each other. So when it goes from Couture, fall 2018, fall 2028, fall 2018, spring 2018, all of those things kind of are interconnected. So each year is actually values one another. And you can tell the difference. So I'm just looking right now at the fall 2018 Couture collection, and then the fall 2018 ready to wear. and you can see the translation that that is actually put into, oh, this is what ready to wear looks like, as opposed to when we're on couture level and it's art. Do you get it? So yeah.
All right.
I love the collection. This is literally the collection I was talking about in the beginning. It's one of my favorite.
Yeah. But no, I love it because it goes back to that thing that he's always saying where couture is the highest level of dressmaking. So everything has to start with couture and then everything happens after.
Yeah, and then look at
you can literally see
Couture 2018 collection right after you
the
see
through
this one.
line.
And it's literally
Yeah, you can see it.
No, it's just
Which is
like,
something he's always done, like, distilling the couture ideas into the ready to wear.
yeah, and like he's done it, like, so when you look at even like spring 2020 ready to wear, for 2019 couture, for 2019 ready to wear, it's literally like just sisters of each other in essence. And he made it go even further when it was the pandemic times. That's when he really,
Yeah.
to be honest.
No, he was. I told you from the pandemic, I was like, yeah, this guy's crazy.
Those 10 collections, oh my word, crazy. Anyway.
So that's how I do it. But you need the emotion, you need the heart, you need the soul there. And then decide, well, decline, to decline, to make it more wearable, commercial, easier to wear. But that only comes when you've got that strong statement, I think. Does that help?
So, painters or sculptors, they can create on their own, right? While fashion designers have to rely on a fashion community. How, like as a dressmaker, how do you retain your own personal vision of fashion while including others in the creative process?
I try to include them right at the beginning, and everyone, really, to bring them into the story and what I'm trying to do, and then you give them space. They come back with more ideas or more research, and the same with the ateliers. You kind of show them a little something you're trying to do and give them space to come back. Sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's a surprise, and I embrace that. It's better than what I had thought of. So we kind of build it all together as we're going along.
Can you think
Wait.
of collaboration experience that really stands out to you? And
Like, that was like so key and important, and it's not to be overlooked, right? Because he's really talking about the process of building along the way, and sometimes we can miss the key markers because we don't just like have conversations around the things that we're creating as we're creating them. And I know a lot of creative people like to create in these holes and come out and have this magnificent thing ready and everything like that, but sometimes it's just a sketch, and sometimes that sketch is rubbish, and you need someone to tell you that when it's still a sketch, as opposed to when you buy all the materials for it. Do you know what I mean? And having those people around us that can help us build ideas is important. And
but it's necessary, and this is why going back to the critique of designers, it's so necessary. Like, you cannot just assume, like, no human being can just assume that everything they say is right, and every one of their ideas is sensational, and that's it, that's where it ends. Which is why, if you are full of, you just have all these yes men around you, you're not going to create really good stuff because no one is really challenging you to be better. That's why I love these streams as a medium, because you can see the comments in real time. There's people that agree, there's people that disagree. I'm not living in a vacuum of my own world where no one else has an opinion and it's just mine and that's it. So I don't really understand this mentality that, fashion should be in a vacuum and there's no critique of fashion that's valid, and let fashion just be fashion. And that's how you get terrible stuff that will end up in landfills and literally damage the planet.
Yeah, and I'm like, as I say to most creative people, I'm gonna stop coughing on the mic soon. I'll be real. 'Cause, but yeah, I know it ruins my audio experience afterwards. But I tell writers, listen, test your ideas in the public, like make tweets or make articles so that people can read them. I tell designers, listen, test your ideas in a forum where people like to talk about ideas that are being created. You don't always need to, it doesn't always need to be this presentation, and like you're not gonna, it's not every single year you're gonna get an idea that is serendipitous and came to you from God, and now you can just give it to the world and it's just between you and God. Like some ideas are made to be built along the way, and that is one of the reasons why we love process video so much, because when it's a really good idea, it's nice to see the process along the way.
Right.
And sometimes it's not a good idea and you can see the response and it doesn't really hit that much. And so it's like we should be able to create in quotes safe spaces or places where we trust the critique of others, right? Because obviously like there is people who are really, really good at writing and like super high in the industry, but they like who is this person on Twitter talking to me about something that, as if I didn't research it? It's like these people in your comments that say you don't know about Demna, but you've had Demna videos since like 2018 or where.
No, but that's because people online are a bit lazy and they don't like to do research. So I understand why people do that. I will literally say something about Demna on Twitter and people will be like, bro, you don't even understand Demna's work. And I'm like, bruh, I literally have probably 30 videos on YouTube analyzing his work.
Here's the reason why people need to go back to school these times. You literally just graduated from school. It's like that's why ideas are like, yes, I understand, because I just wanted to note that there's places where your ideas can be presented, but people can't understand the greater context because they haven't actually looked into the person that is saying it, which is why it's nice to have someone or people that value and understand the story that you've been telling for over a course of time. And that's why it's good to have forums for those type of things. But I understand why everybody's not trying to test their ideas out in public, because it's a little bit scary.
It's rough.
And they don't and people in the public don't care. But at the same time, it's like we choose our friends for a reason, right? And if our friends are understanding, they understand our greater context, and we're able to present ideas without like fear of harsh judgment straight away, and we don't fear the probing and the questions, then we can create really solid ideas over a course of time.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
But
let's see what else Galliano is talking about.
And how did it challenge and enrich your creative process?
I can think of many, but I think this last collection was very challenging. You never stop learning with the buyer's cuts. Each fabric teaches you something different, but then to try and develop the buyer's cut, but over a corseted silhouette and altered body shape was really challenging. I mean, as much as we knew about the bias and corsets, both of which I'd done before, for the two to work together there was just no answers. We had to work everything out as we went along. I think we all learned a lot, which is that's really exciting when, you come in wanting to do your best. At least I do. I hope you do too when you go to school. Like, you just want to do your best, don't you? And then when you have moments like that and you think that you've achieved something or learned something, then it's really good for the soul, I think. It's really good for the soul. So I'd say this one was the most challenging. I mean.
So, John, in the recent years, you and Maison Margiela have been really transparent about the process behind the collection, and I wanted to know how important is it to you to show the behind the scenes and how the collection is made.
I think it's really important to communicate that. I started to do it during the pandemic when I was trying to find new ways to communicate and reinforce the ethics of the house, what we stood for, to explain a little bit the act of creation and you know, how important it was, and that these clothes had a soul. They weren't just cookie cutting clothes. They, you know, they were born out of love, craft, tradition, all those things. And sometimes it's nice to explain that, to understand better what you're buying into. It's important.
My question is, what makes the heart of a collection?
You know, when you start to get obsessed about something, that is the heart, that is the heartbeat that will pull you through the process, I think. Sometimes I have 3 or 4 obsessions before lunchtime. You can imagine. So I encourage it, I really do.
If you were in our place and you got to meet somebody who inspires you, who would that be and what would you ask them?
I think that would be Madeleine Vionnet.
Let's go.
And I think I'd ask all the questions that I couldn't get answers from her work that's been...
Wait, let's just pause before he continues. Like, this goes into this idea of Galliano has been obsessed with the techniques of a lot of these designers. Obviously, he just said that he learnt something new about the ways that you can use the bias cut, even though he's been using it for so many years. And finding that balance between the corsetry and the bias cut was where he found the challenges. But it's so great to see a designer that is so obsessed that they're literally like, yeah, if this designer was alive, there's so many things about their techniques that I've not been able to figure out after these many years that I would just ask them all the design, you know, technical questions that I need answers to. Those kind of designers will always win. Like, designers that obsessed with techniques like that.
Bro, it's so important to be a student of the game, right? And some people don't want to look at other designers because, oh no, I don't want to be influenced by, you know, us.
Oh, that stuff annoys me, bro. That
Yeah,
stuff annoys me.
just to say, it's like, fam, chill. Like, people have been great before you, and people will be great after you. What you're doing to people who have understanding is adding to the greater context of what has been created already. And like, whether you believe there's nothing new under the sun or your designs are divined by, you know, an almighty power, it's like there are still fundamentals and techniques that you can learn from that other people have created, and ways that people have spoke and had reference points prior to you. Like, and it's like people would be now, you know, influenced by Fiorucci or like brutalist movement or the mod movement. It's like, wait, chill. People have already been influenced by that. Maybe you want to look at it so you don't look like you're copying somebody else, because that's happened also. So yeah.
No, but I think it's just like some of the greatest designers we've seen that we are aware of, I'll say. If you just look at why they are so good at construction and they can come up with so many solutions for so many issues, is because, like, you think of the likes of Cristobal Balenciaga, he studied so many designers' patterns. Like, he would literally cut the garments into their like pieces so he could just study the pattern and then construct it back together and see what he learns from construct. That is literally what these couturiers did. So to think that you're above that and, you know, I don't want to be inspired by any design, that's not why you're looking at their work. It's not to take that idea and take it as your own. You're trying to understand more about the construction of garments themselves. You're trying to understand, okay, the way they did this pattern, the way that they've done the dyeing is something that is just more information that you can add to your toolbox that you might need trying to tell your story or a specific story that you're trying to tell through fashion. I think that kind of mentality is just limiting overall, that you limit the amount of skills that you gain not looking at things that other designers have achieved.
Bro, and one of these things is that, and they speak about it almost everywhere that I look anyways, is the importance of having an extensive visual library, right? Whether you draw as a designs or like you're using, you know, a program, or you're using creative ideas and all of these other things, or making fashion, it's like having an extensive visual library allows you to pull from other places and create your own designs responsibly. because there is a good way to copy and there's a bad way to copy. And your copy can be the instance that allows for an even greater design. But you'll never have that if you don't make room or make an allowance for that. And I don't see why some people would say they don't want to copy after, let's say, you've been creating your own style, in quotes, for so many years now. And there's value in doing exactly like you said. So yeah, being influenced is important because it's your influences that influenced you to do the thing that you want to do now. You didn't just so happen to want to do fashion. Something influenced you to do that. So why would you stop the thing that helped you start in the first place?
Exactly. And you had to be influenced by something or someone. That was the starting point and the catalyst for why you started designing in the first place. It's kind of counterproductive in my mind to do that. And I meet designers all the time. They're like, yeah, I don't really follow fashion. I just kind of like Isamiyak and that's about it. And I'm like,
bro, I want you to talk about how you've been a student of the game, right? And all the books and resources and research that you've actually done, just to like, give an image on the journalist side of things, because I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think most people know at this point that I have like a library in my house and all that stuff.
Let's imagine
and people
that this is the first time someone's watching the live stream.
Okay, so I do have a fashion library, and it runs like an actual library, but I don't have the resources to make it a wider library. So basically, my friends that I work with borrow stuff, and I have like my stamps, and I keep tallies of books and stuff, and they borrow books, and they send me my books back and all that sort of stuff. And the whole reason for it is I think that in fashion in general, especially these days, I don't think it was an issue not too long ago, but I think now definitely, I think people just lack knowledge on certain things, whether it's historically or now. So I have all kinds of books, from African art history to European art history to literal profiles on certain designers like Balenciaga, Schiaparelli, or Yves Saint Laurent, or Lanvin, all these designers, to books on graphic designers that I really love, like Alexei Brodovich, who did the graphic design for the old Harper's Bazaar covers, and he was one of the reasons why people use negative space the way they use it now. I have a magazine archive, like all these different things, because I think that, once again, it doesn't matter what you do, learning never ends. So you just have to keep on learning. But I think a big issue these days is people don't, or think that they know shit and that's it. Like, I'll meet, not journalists, because I think a lot of journalists I meet are on this case of, there's nothing, like, learning never ends. But I'll meet, let's say, certain people that just make content, and they're like, I kind of feel like I know everything there is to know about fashion. And I'm like, that's funny. Like, I think that in my head, like, how the fuck can you think you know everything there is to know about fashion? Have some humility. Jesus Christ. There's people that are 95 years old and they haven't even scratched the surface. Why do you, 18-year-old, think that you know everything there is to know about fashion? Because you learnt about Balenciaga and Schiaparelli. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, and that's where people get to going, oh, that's a Margiela reference. Oh, that's a Margiela. It's like, no, that's a VNA reference. That's a...
Or that's a Sonia Rykiel reference that Margiela took, right?
Yeah, it's like, please have some shame. Okay. But just to stay on our point, it's like, for me, like, there is so many reasons why having a library of references is important, because everybody has a Pinterest, right? But not everybody has page 58 of this book that I really, really love on photography in Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there is value in being able to create, like, know what your taste is first, right? And have your own taste. Like, like I said, you spent 3 years discovering your style. Now add to it. And then add to the greater context of what you understand. Or should I say, that is what I do. You don't need to do anything. But I add to the greater context of what I understand, because this is what I care about. And if I say to myself, I live and breathe this, then there is no reason why I shouldn't be able to invest in my library as much as I invest in, let's say, having fun with my friends, or eating and having food. It's like, this is just as much part of my life as having good stew and jollof rice is. I'll be real. So like, I think it's important. But he's about to say some amazing things right now.
Yeah, in fact, I see people also seem to get 3 sources of inspiration altogether, chosen from the most talked about 100 arts and design people from social media. Now, like, that's it. This is my work now. I am finished. Yeah, that is very true, unfortunately. So people go, they read those books like 50 fashion designers you should know, and it's like Christian Dior and Christopher Balenciaga and Lanvin, Balmain, like all these designers. So then you don't learn about anything else, which is terrible, by the way. Because I talk about this all the time. Like, those designers benefit from the industry that is fashion. So if you found a way to get to Paris some way, somehow, there's an ecosystem of magazines and journalists that will write about your work and document it. There are so many designers who were probably making work just as good, but it's not as documented. Which is why, as much as I love learning about a new story about Schiaparelli, I love learning about designers that have been influential in different ways, like people like Shea Thomas Farm, who is one of the first like major African designers that went really big internationally and was very well recognized internationally. I'm actually dropping an interview with her on Patreon very soon, actually. That was done not too long ago. So people like that, all of it is valid. It's like learning, just really, really broaden your horizons. It's not just about 10 designers. Like, yeah, I know about fashion in the 90s, Helmut Lang and Jill Sander, reading off a list. Like, it's not, there's just more to fashion than that. Wait, what was Luke saying?
Beautifully explained. I've even gone to museums where I've had the privilege to be able to handle some of those dresses, to learn even more. But I think the one thing I'd say to her, I mean, I'll share this with you because it was great, was something that we only discovered this season. And it was thanks to modern technology, really. So I was upset. Yeah, I've done bias before, and embroidered bias, and we've been quite happy with it, but not 100% happy. And we were just looking at some of the dresses like ever. Anyway, through modern technology and kind of close-up photography, we were able to sit around the table with my team and study the way some of the beading had been applied and put together. And there was a bit of a eureka moment, because she's never written about this, you won't see it anywhere. She cuts the cloth and the bias, but she embroiders on the straight of grain. Big! You can't read that anyway. I'm getting to the end of my career to discover that. It was like, wow, it's that simple. But, I mean, you see her embroideries, this is nothing. It's like liquid material, gorgeous, you know. So, and it's never, you won't read that anywhere, I mean, you know. And it took, you know, the people I was working with are like amazing, amazing premiers, technicians. Tiana had done the artwork with us, and we were all taking it apart and making this thing bigger. And it was like, wow, that's just like the best kept secret that I've just shared with you all. But research is so important.
How many of these designers do you think are actually taking what he said? And actually, how many designers do you think, when after he said this, they went home and tried to experiment with the technique? How many?
I don't even think it was more than 10%, and I think 10% is maybe generous. Oh my days!
If I was a designer, I would have gone home and tried that technique the second I went home. The same way that when a journalist is speaking about fashion and they talk about some history of art I've never heard of, or, you know, some designer that influenced this that I've never heard of, I'm going straight back to my house and seeing what books are on it, see if they've done any interviews, what documentaries have been done. So it's that's kind of sad that we would think that, you know, less than 10% would go and experiment with what he's just said.
Yeah. And one of my things with all of that is you can tell the joy that he had in finding that, and
Yep.
then like he's actually stupefied by that, and the value that he just dropped in a random minute on a in a random interview is absolutely mind-boggling to me. And the room did not react the way that I wanted them to react because if I found out a technique, I remember those days where I would be studying life drawing and I will be studying anatomy, and I found an amazing video. And the first thing I did before I even started attempting is I sent it to my friend, and then I started drawing again. And then when someone would reference a book, one of my teachers would reference a book, I would look that book up, see if I can find the PDF, and then save that PDF, pull it in a hard drive so that I always have it in that hard drive, and then see how much the book is and put it in my book list to buy. That is
Yep.
like the degree of how much care some people can have about it. I'm not saying I care the most, but I know I care a lot. And yeah, I think it's important when people say something valuable that it shouldn't be treated randomly, which is why I picked out
Like, do you
this.
know how valuable that? Like, first
Fam.
of all, John Galliano has been designing since before I was born. Let's just start there. So, the amount of experience, the amount of experimentation that someone like him has done with all the techniques you can think of, for him at this age, at this stage of his career, to tell you about something that he's been trying to figure out and he just learnt is some of the most invaluable like stuff for him to say, that it's shocking as a designer. If you say that you want to be a designer and you go home after hearing that from someone like him and don't experiment on it, you probably don't want to be a designer. Maybe you think you do, but you probably don't.
Bro, for him to
Because that
say,
means you don't have that enthusiasm there. There's not that same passion.
like at the age that he's saying that he's studying as well, he's a student at his big age. At his big age, like he's actually creating. He's 64 and he's constantly creating and he's constantly learning. And I'm sure he's probably studied, V&A ad nauseum, but at the same time, he still goes back to his old references, because what we may have a problem doing sometimes, especially when we're young, is like trying to hoard references, and not actually going back to the library we already have and saying, all right, I know I've read this book on Balenciaga, but let me just read it again. Let me see if I can find something new and like contextualize it with all the information I have now.
Yeah.
And I think that is an important part of the thing also. Is that you can tell who his favorite designers are and why he goes back to them. But then also it's something to take in from what he said, which is why I love this interview so much. It's like he's saying these things, but he's saying them with the understanding that he's been there before.
Exactly.
So it makes me say to myself, all right, where have I been before that I don't go back to? And then I go to my library of, I'm not going to say the number of books I have, but it's a heavy bookshelf. And I'll say, all right, let me just look at this again. Because I can be looking at, my love of books, but at the same time, we've got the references. Sometimes we have the references, we just need to look again so that we can find the right context.
Yeah, but that happens all the time. Like, even there'll be things that I just cannot remember, and I'll have to go and find the book. Like, what book was that in? And then you have to find it and then constantly keep going back. So yeah, that's, as a designer, that's definitely something you should be doing. And if you're not, try to start doing it.
Who was that? Can you imagine? We were so excited, I can't tell you.
Is
Look at the
there
joy
have
on his
any
face.
artworks or film taught you a lot in your life?
So many, and I'm so grateful that I'm with each collection, and I'm led to a door, and I open that door, and I'm introduced to the works of someone I didn't know. My team will introduce me, or poetry, or music, or films that I hadn't seen. I think with each collection, I just learn more and more and more. Death in Venice, the music Mahler. Just that slowness, that real time, the way it's filmed, and the mist, and the colorings, and And the story's beautiful as well, but that period and the way it's evoked and just the slowness of the story that kind of brings you in and just exquisite beauty. Yeah, it's just a very beautifully shot, lit film. All the crops are like incredible. So I'd say that one if you haven't seen it.
Why was it important to you to take the time to find new techniques?
To push oneself, to push ourselves. Myself as well. The idea that once you'd created that silhouette through the use of corsetry, that anything you did on top was just new. Mm-hmm. It had to fit, and it would never fit unless you came back to that waist measurement or hip measurement. So that de rigueur, the discipline of old school couture, but I hope interpreted in a lighter and more modern way, I hope. But still, the disciplines were very much there, very much there. We go online sometimes too to try, if we need to find a solution or some little something. Sometimes we find the answer, but then sometimes it's just like you've got to work it out. The fabric, if you listen, it will tell you. A dialogue develops, and you can't make certain fabrics or force them to do things. They'll tell you how they want to be cut or draped, or have to listen. Yeah.
What are your greatest hopes for the future, and what are some of your concerns as well?
I think my greatest hopes for us, for our future, is that we continue to fly the flag, if you like, for couture, because I think really that's so important that we don't lose that, really. It's very important, I think, to move fashion forward. You're working with volumes and shape, and so I think that's really important, that we all never let that die, because, there are fewer and fewer couturiers around, aren't there?
Bro.
So hurry up.
Facts.
Look at his love of the game.
We need you to jump in and to never let that go, never lose that discipline.
How many of them will jump in, though? That's the question. How many people have that obsession with design that would want to get to that level? That's the problem.
Bro, this is the Patrice Evra version of I love this game. That's what it is. This is like the epitome of just like, this is his hurrah. Like, I could tell that this interview or video was his victory lap, but also his ability to drop jewels and just give game free game, because I guess he knew he wasn't gonna re-sign, I guess. So his attempt to share that, but this is the thing, right? So many of us, I'm gonna put myself in this bucket. I mean, in the collective, is our generation loves the idea of saying, "Oh, I work for so and so," or "I've worked with this many designers over this course of this time," and I've actually heard that. I've actually heard that people say, "Oh no, I know this because I've worked with this person over here and that person over there and that person over there. Like, this is how we should do it." And sometimes it's like, well, let's chill out. Like, are you really trying to be the best, or are you trying to say you?
Like, do labels mean anything? Like, how many Vogue articles have we seen where they get shit wrong? So, you know what I mean? Just because you worked at a brand or you worked at a magazine, it doesn't really actually mean fuck all. Like, unless, like, what do you actually know? What can you actually do? The proof is in the pudding. It isn't in, like, oh, I worked for Vogue, so so I know this, or like I designed for this house. It's like, when you designed at the house, were you seeking knowledge, or were you just there to tick boxes and fill numbers?
Gang, oh my days, that was a mic drop for real. No, that's real. That's real, because some people, they think that they're in like their CV is the center of the universe, and it validates them in some particular way. And then when other people leapfrog over them and get a, let's say, a higher position in the industry, if you can say it like that, then they're the ones that get up in arms. Those are the people that are like, oh, the game is all screwed up with these people doing their live streams and all of this and all of that. And it's like, oh.
He took it there. That's funny.
Do you actually love this game, and would you do anything to just participate? Or are you just there to get a paycheck and look after your family, which is great. I love people that do that. But don't hate on, you know, what is where you're supposed to be. Because sometimes we can miss the boat. And I never ever want to be someone that misses the boat. And if I do, I need somebody to tell me so that I can swim. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how much I love this game. It's like, yo, there shouldn't be a stoppage point. We're always in injury time because there's someone always on the come up.
Yeah. Also, Jennifer, I saw in the comments that Jennifer still has my Bibba book. Yeah. When next you're in London, please let me know. I've been missing that book. I need to read it. Because I haven't actually read it. Because the day that I bought it, who did I give it to? I gave it to Understitch to read, which was amazing because then Understitch made that Bibba video, which was sensational. And then I think Understitch gave it to Jennifer. and Jennifer's going to give it to me. So yeah, thank you for reminding me actually. Luke said I've set my appointment at McQueen into motion. Yeah, I just think if you want to work in fashion, it's different if like it's just a hobby, that's different. But if you want to work in fashion, I think there needs to be a certain level of passion, whether you're a journalist or a designer or whatever. There just needs to be a level of obsession with what you do, and obsession with seeking the knowledge about certain things. Like, and it shows. I mean, you can always tell who does it for that reason. Like, I post videos on YouTube and clips on YouTube that I know will not do well. I already know because the audience is low. Like, I know I post a video about, let's say, African designers, and people don't want to watch it, so it doesn't get that many views. But I don't care, because the people that are that tapped in will watch that video and learn about new fashion and learn about a different perspective of fashion coming from a different place. If I wanted to be Mr. I get the most views, I'll just talk about Balenciaga all day and leave it there. I wouldn't extend the amount of topics that I talk about. I'll just talk about the most popular thing, and that's where everything ends.
Yeah, no, there's a level of obsession that we all need for the thing that we love. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes people don't want to be obsessed. And I do think that that is fair and healthy and everything like that. But then you also need, like, I understand that everything is a spectrum, right? So there are people who are super obsessed, and then there are people that just want a paycheck. And some of us may fall somewhere on the middle ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything can live in unison. But what we shouldn't do is throw hate on people that are here because, you know, they like it, but maybe just not that much, right? Or maybe they like this particular facet of it. But if you say you are part of this particular group, as in like the people who love it for real, then there are signs. You know what I'm saying? There are signs that you actually love it to that degree. And you show appreciation for the people that do love it. And, you know, you get people like Jennifer, Understitch, Ayo, you know what I'm saying? All of the people in the stream, right? That are typing. And it's like, there's a value in having that type of community who are just as enthusiastic about the thing that you enjoy. And we should be able to, you know, enjoy and, you know, value each other for that. Let me not get mushy, but yeah, type business.
Sam, you got not get too mushy.
You know, dressmaking and understanding how to construct a dress, how to engineer a dress, the scaffolding, if you like, before you decorate it and build. And we never want to lose that. And supporting that. You know? Some of those embroiderers or the different suppliers that work with us as well, we have to keep them busy, keep them going and bringing in new blood. Very important, especially in this world as well, where one draws conclusions from algorithms, and even some creative decisions are made by that's why couture, we have to, it's from your heart. You ask, where's the heart? I think they'll never work that out. They'll never work that out. It's you, your emotion, your hand that you feel. Always be authentic. You won't go wrong, I don't think. Be your authentic, true selves.
I think we're all wondering if you could give us a piece of advice for our graduates that are going to enter the fashion industry.
A piece of advice?
Something we should be aware of, or...
Sleep on your mate's couch.
And never give up on the dream. I mean...
He basically just said that.
There's going to be times that are really challenging.
Like sleeping on the couch.
Yeah.
Maybe a graduation show, I don't know. No, but even outside in the real world, there's going to be times where you might be disappointed. But every time that you learn something. You really learn something that's so, at the time, you're feeling quite down and disappointed. I don't know, a week later, you've learned something. I don't know, with that disappointment comes something that you learn that is invaluable, I think. Because if we didn't have those moments, we wouldn't learn anything, would we? I mean, so, yeah, it's not nice to have those rebukes or a critique that went really badly. But, I mean, it is the only way you learn, isn't it? I mean, you can take it on board, you can agree or not. But I always learned something from those situations. Never give up the dream. Don't listen to anyone. Keep going. You'll get there.
That's it. It's all over, Jackie. Don't cry, don't beg.
He said, don't cry, don't beg. But that thing is so true. I feel like if you're passionate, you'll make it work. It's like my first job in fashion, I wasn't living in London and the job was in London and I couldn't afford to go and I just made it work. Some days I know I have that crazy story that I cycled for 6 hours to get to work and cycle. It's true, but that's just what was needed at the time because I couldn't afford to take the train. And I wasn't paying to go on the train because I couldn't afford it. And then I finally got caught and I was like, okay, yeah, I can't be risking this kind of stuff. So if I can't afford it, I'll just cycle the whole way. And remember, at the time, my work started at 8:30 a.m. So you can imagine what time I had to wake up if I'm cycling 6 hours to work, right? And you can also imagine how dangerous it is cycling in some sketchy roads. Cycling across some sketchy roads at 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. A bit insane. So yeah, I feel like you can make it work. But I do think though that, and that's also why sometimes it pisses me off when like even when I was in school, people would be like, oh, easy for you to say. And I'm just thinking in my head, there's none of you that will cycle 6 hours to go to work. I don't believe it. None of you give me the vibes that you would cycle 6 hours to work. So don't give me the whole, oh, easy for you to say. Like, you can't even like do what I do. So it's not about easy for you to say. It's just you wouldn't do it. He said,
car engine. Yeah, no, man. I don't wanna sound like I'm preaching, but I do believe that there was immense value in what he said, and not even as like some sort of, worship of a guy, but just as someone who's a consummate professional in his craft. That when you listen to those type of people that are artisanal, there are things to glean, even though you don't do what he does. Like neither I or I are designers, right, that make couture, but at the same time, there are things to glean from that you can transmute and transmit into your own practice and decipher the clues and keys from, what he said. And that is when I listen to this for the fourth time, that is what I do. That's what I see. I see all of those
Yeah.
cues, and being able to communicate that also allows me to understand that I did read what he was saying in the right way, and I'm not trying to deep it a bit too much. But yeah.
Do you know what's funny? So Luke said 6 hours of your life wasted, every day being wasted. Oh no. So do you know what's funny? First of all, the 6 hour thing, it's not like I was doing it every day. It only happened like a few times when I was down and out. Like it wasn't like constant. But also the few times that I did do it, I think I did it like maybe like 3 times. But the thing is, those 3 times I had, because I was on the pavement anyway, so I had my earphones in one ear and I was listening to fashion podcasts the whole time. So it almost didn't feel like it was 6 hours because I was kind of focusing on where I was going, but I was also focusing on what I was listening to. So I just felt like by the time I got there, I had an insane fashion education by the time I got to work and on the way back. So I learned so much about fashion in that time because I was just listening to interviews and listening to podcasts and listening to different things while I was going the whole way. And it was kind of relaxing because I was cycling at a time when basically no one was on the road, which is why I was like, it's really dangerous. But in that sense, it was kind of calming where there's just no noise. It's just me cycling and then listening to the podcast and the interviews.
Yeah, I literally remember when I was working my corporate job, and I would be listening to podcasts and just sketching. I was doing live drawing, and I remember people asking me, "Are you drawing me?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah." But listen, I got it in every single way I knew how. If I could get 10 minutes, I did it. If I just used a Mickey Mouse pencil, I remember I did my first 100 illustrations one time, and all I had was a Mickey Mouse pencil. And like a couple I don't know, like pro markers. I don't know whether everybody knows what they are, but they're like board markers, but they're for paper essentially.
Yeah.
And trial and error, just going through, understanding my style and how I, wanted to navigate creating art. And yeah, there's a story that I usually tell, but I don't want to like overdo it. But yeah.
Why did you say that?
No, it's just like, what I'm saying? There is a part of the story that's like super big, but it's kind of like just
okay.
I'd rather do it. I don't want to oversell the idea, but literally, like you were saying, it is important to know your craft and graft at it, because and there's nothing to prove to anybody about how much you've actually grafted, but it's only to illustrate.
No, but it's just to illustrate like that you're passionate about. Because okay, that job that I was cycling 6 hours for a few times, through that job I was able to get my camera equipment for my YouTube channel, because one of the perks, because I was a content creator for the brand at the time, and one of the perks for the brand was that I got the equipment. So I was able to get a microphone and a camera and like all these different things, which obviously helped my YouTube channel and were things that I definitely could not afford at the time. So even in a respect, I wouldn't even have this YouTube channel if I didn't have that job. So that's a big thing. Like all these things kind of intersect, kind of things happen for a reason.
Yeah, man, that's so real, man. I literally remember. Yeah, never mind, fam. There's so much to everybody's story, isn't there? And it's not, because I never wanted it to sound like a boo-hoo moment, but yeah, like some of us really came from like not having anything.
Well, I guess because once again, that goes back to, you remember not too long ago, we had that stream where we were talking about not being the typical person from fashion, because we're not rich, we're not upper class. I can't, I'm not one of the people that I've worked with in fashion where they live in their parents' house that their parents have rented for them, or their parents have bought, and they're just living there in London. They pay no rent, they have no bills, they have no responsibilities. They're just vibing. Like they're just like, I'm gonna go to the Maldives tomorrow. Like, yeah.
Grand, great. Great.
Just vibing, bro. Like,
you're Tony the Tiger, fam. You just have to
like
put the
must
thumbs up and
be
teeth.
nice.
Shine teeth and be like, great. Just like, no, bro. I remember. Let me just say this, right? Just to illustrate. I remember, like, my parents were.
Wait, what did Leo say? Sorry, before donating for all the philosophical cooking we have experienced. That's funny. Not Imani saying I'm guilting her. I'm not guilting anyone. Please, no one feel like you have to give me money. That's not why we're talking about.
Like, we're not cycling.
We're talking about passion in fashion.
Bro.
Yeah.
We're not cycling anymore.
I will not be doing cycling 6 hours ever again in my life. I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. But it happened at one point.
Yeah, man, I remember, like, just the point of, like, the typical fashion person. It's like, literally remember, like, my parents were, like, they invested so much into me and my education. And at a point, I was just like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm just going to find a way out of this situation, because I can't keep going to them for 50, 20, and then, you know, hundreds, whatever it is, right? So I just said, stop. And I'm just going to try to get out of the mud however I can. And literally I have old Instagram pages. You're never really going to see what I'm talking about. But I remember just doing sneaker sketches and architecture sketches and fashion illustrations until I got, like, my first job. And that's where I got, like, that gig where I did a 3D visualization for an architecture company. And that's kind of what helped me get my my iMac. And then that's, you know, evolved into what you guys see with me today in terms of, like, me even being on the IO's live streams. It's like, listen, if I didn't, like, graft like that in them times, fam, I would not be doing what I'm doing. I would still be asking my parents for money, fam. I'm a big man. I'm a big man to be doing that. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. No, it's important. It's important. Like, you know, it's part of the story. Let's put it that way.
That's funny. Every time I hear, like, I'm a big man, I just think of Specs. I don't know why.
Oh,
it's just so funny.
yeah.
I'm a big man. That's funny.
Yeah, man. Is this a 2018 show or a 2020 show?
This is artisanal spring/summer 2017.
Yeah, fam.
Before Nike ID, we were designing sneakers. No Yachty. That's funny.
That's funny as well, bro. No mud, no Lotus.
Watching while I eat lunch again.
Yeah. I guess she's saying that she's not getting out of the mud. she's just chowing down. Shout out to them, bro.
Rory said, "Aren't your parents doctors?" None of my parents are doctors.
My parents.
Imagine, because I'm Nigerian, they're like, "Aren't your parents doctors?" Yeah. No, none of my parents are doctors. Sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah, man.
Finn is just flexing on us. Finn has a piece of every collection. Finn is just absolutely flexing on us.
I love the play of fabric, fam.
Yeah, Luke says put one of his namesake label shows on. I know Luke would like to see some John Galliano for John Galliano, by John Galliano, with John Galliano, for John Galliano.
About John Galliano.
About John Galliano. That's some Marc Jacobs stuff. We're bringing it into the context of John Galliano.
Mark by Mark.
Mark by Mark, for Mark, with Mark. At Mark.
About Jacobs.
That is actually so funny that they did that.
No,
like, who came up with that?
No, man. That's how you know some people just have, like, know how to inject humor. But that's funny. People don't know that you watch Filthy fella. Oh,
Yeah, I watch a lot of things. I told you, Dammy, when I comment on certain videos, people are like, no way, like you're here. Like the thing is, I'm just a curious person in general, so my curiosity takes me all over the internet. So even if, you know, my main passion is fashion, I have other passions too. And that's where my curiosity takes me. Someone saying Chelsea are winning the league. Let's not speak too soon. Let's not jinx it.
did you see
Let's not jinx it.
the Man United and City game today?
Yeah, I was watching it just before I got on the stream.
Same.
United scored that last minute fluky
Hey,
ass last minute
that was
goal.
not last minute. First of all, Ahmed did not judge. That was a beautiful pass with a beautiful touch and a half beautiful finish. He didn't really connect properly, but yeah, fam.
The finish was amazing. To be fair, it was just I'm just saying it's fluky because it was a last minute.
That felt like Fergie time. I can't lie. I was like, what is happening right now? That was a beautiful game. That touch before. Felt like I was watching an anime, fam.
Micah says this guy watches everything. You'd be shocked. It's borderline jarring. That's because I have those conversations with Micah. Micah, how have you seen that? Like what?
Yeah, no, I feel like that without.
Yes, I'm a Chelsea fan since birth. I feel like I didn't have a choice because my dad was a Chelsea fan, so I kind of was initiated at a young age.
Yeah, no, I had to pick Chelsea, fam. Shout out to Chelsea. My brother didn't want us to all support the same football team. That's where our sibling rivalry started, with all of us picking teams.
That's funny. I mean, my parents just had one kid that was interested in sports. My dad is like, "You're a Chelsea fan. That is what you are."
Oh.
Yeah, I do watch baseball. That's true. I watch every sport, to be honest. Any sport that exists, I probably watch it.
Yeah, I'm back watching the F1 now. It's taken me 2 years to get back into it, but I'm watching it now. This new season.
They say if you support Chelsea, you live in Chelsea, it's explains the hidden. I don't think that's how it works. I'm not quite sure that's how it works. If everyone in the world that supports Chelsea had to live in Chelsea, I mean, geez, their stadiums would be basically empty almost every game. Wait, Finn watched the Man U game. Wow. So yeah, it was big.
Oh my
Artisanal. No, I love someone's talking about Japanese baseball. I love Japanese baseball because of the commitment that Japanese people have. It's so different.
Yeah, I want to
here y'all go talking about sports. Yeah, let's go back to fashion. Let's go back to fashion.
Fam. That's what I was thinking.
So John Galliano. And Luke is so right about this collection being very Comme des Garçons looking. Facts.
Give it a second. Can we go to the spring summer 2020 collection? I don't know much about this collection, but that 2020 collection is one of my loves.
I'll put it on the screen for you.
I don't know who can tell us something about this collection because I actually don't. I would like to learn more about it. This one, because I think, yeah, this is this the one with the faces on the with the sheer fabric where it's like sculpting a face and image of it? I think it was.
Yep, that was one of the ideas. This was the collection that it was mainly famous because of the walk of the model.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes, that went viral.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that was defending
the
it.
viral
I remember
moment.
being on Twitter before I was on fashion Twitter, and I was defending it, and people unfollowed me. Like, you think you're just so fashion? I was like, listen, I don't know what to tell you anymore. I live for this. Like, you know.
Yeah. No, this collection was really famous. I thought there was a time when everyone was talking about it because it was like this idea of, I can't remember. It was either, I know it was like something to do with I have to do my research, but I remember it was something to do with women that were either nurses or something, or like in the Navy in the war, something along those lines. But if you guys know specifically about this collection, let me know. But that was kind of where a lot of the references were coming from. But this would actually be an interesting collection for me to go back and do research on, actually.
Yeah, so it's like good wartime references. I believe it was army medics.
Is that? Oh, did you have a look?
No, I'm going off my memory. I might be wrong.
Okay. Okay, there's a podcast on it I am memory of. Yeah, I was talking about that podcast earlier. Let me write that down. After I come off this, I'm going to listen to that. SS20 Margiela. That would be interesting.
Military nurses.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The cutouts are about spotlights. Okay, someone saying military nurses and a uniform. So I guess I was along the right track, but the show happened quite long ago, and I remember that season I covered so many shows, so I can't remember clearly, but that's why we always look back.
I want a book of all of his seasons at Margiela, to be fair.
That would be amazing, to be honest.
Yeah. Him and J.W. Anderson. Shout out to J.W. Anderson, decade at Loewe, by the way.
Damn. Does time really fly that fast?
Yes, it's actually crazy.
I was looking at, because I was like, oh, when did these like collections happen? I really love like Swark, and I was like, oh my god, that's basically 4 years ago already.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like that, where it's like raw.
I'm actually old. Like,
yeah, nah.
How was that 4 years ago?
Nah. Okay, here we go.
I remember that coat. A lot of people had that. That coat was really popular online. Like, a lot of influencers had that coat.
Okay, he was telling the models. This is around the time where he was like doing the characterization thing, in terms of like all the models are trying to have different walks. So not all of them have the same walk and tempo of which they're walking, which is kind of chaotic, but it gives an amazing effect. And look at all the guys in heels, by the way. That's fire. Shout out to the man them. Yeah, fam. Look at I think he called it a beret. What's the beret? I don't know what the hat is called. But he also did that hat in a previous season, not the hat specifically. Shout out to the, you know what I'm saying, the midwiferys and the African nurses and that. But
see, Dammy, they're quoting you with the shout out to Ozempic.
Oh, yo,
that's a famous Dammy quote.
You guys are referencing from long ago. Shout out to you guys for referencing very well. We talk about harkening back. So yeah, as we can see, the walks of different tempos. It's gonna start to get brazy.
Until we get to the end, and then everyone was like, all these dead ass memes. Walking into my mum's purse, be like, walking into my next job, be like.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say something about the hat. So he's always had this thing with hats, right? But the slick down ones that look like the hats from the 50s, specifically, especially where he did the hair for that, I believe it was a 2018 or 2019 collection. I think it was a collection shown in 2018, about 2019. And he was using the hat to mold and sculpt the hair as if it was in the rain.
Right.
And with these ones, he was attempting to do picturesque hair because he did it like it was an evolution of how he did the hair in the previous collection. And I thought that was amazing. I do remember that. You thought you had a pocket. That's gang.
I love those trousers. I was just staring at the shape of those trousers. Yeah, very high-waisted.
I got trousers like that. They don't taper that much to the leg. But I was wearing them today. Those purses are amazing, by the way. I forget who said it. But yeah. Shout out to collections where all you love isn't just the purses. You love the actual clothes as well.
Did you see that bracelet though?
Them socks. There was something about the socks. Or the brooch. Oh my god. I really love the brooch in that one look. Wait. Oh. Shout out to...
Isn't it so funny how these guys are literally calling you Dichi?
That's funny. Wait, that means that means you must follow me on either Discord or Instagram. Oh, or Twitter.
It's the people from Discord that call you Dichi.
Yeah.
Definitely.
To be
Finn
fair,
says, I think this is my last collection I bought ready to wear from. Interesting. Like Margiela ready to wear. Interesting.
Shout out Dichi, shout out to Ozempic. Wow. Eli Lilly are doing numbers. But yeah. Shout out to the people that invest.
But yeah, when I think about it, this actually was the viral collection before the viral collection, to be honest.
This was like the start of a crescendo. This is also when bare people started to want to go to Margiela, because if you look at the earlier collections, they were just like, I remember there was this one collection where it was just...
I thought they were really good. I just think the buzz wasn't there.
Yeah. But he did have a collection prior to this where it was like he had a graffiti on the clothes. It looked like graffiti anyways. It was probably art. But yeah. Those rips from being hard at war. Oh my gosh. The layering effects of the fabric above the opaque. What's up?
No, she just said we remember when there were two Leos, because Luke, obviously, like, people call him Leo, I guess. So his username used to be Leo and he changed it to Luke.
Oh, okay. Specifically because of the stream. Look at the influence.
Yeah, that's the viral moment.
Oh yeah, TikTok gripped this one.
Yeah, TikTok had this clip, this walk, had TikTok in a chokehold for a good few months. Like, bro, TikTok wasn't ready for that.
This walk got me unfollowed. I was like, you just don't understand. They were like, we don't give a F. And then they don't. Yeah, fam. It's like, I didn't like the way that you were explaining it. You sounded condescending. I was like, oh, shit, damn. I ain't mean it.
Social media had a field day with him, but he laughed his way to the bank. I mean, he probably did.
Galliano or the model?
Both. Because as a model, if you have a viral moment, it just makes... Because I've worked for brands where, like, we want to book a model and we're still, like, wasting time thinking about it. And then they walk their first Chanel runway show a week after, and then their price just goes up, like really crazy. So these kind of moments, because also people, like, will want to do commercials with you because, you know, you're the person that everyone is talking about. No, your price goes up as a model when you have a viral moment. So the model definitely loved his way to the bank. 100%. Yeah, Finn, I was giving so much praise to the Swalk collections early on. Like, if you watch the stream back, if you have the time, the first, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes, I was just praising Swalk and just talking about the ideas and the references and stuff. Those are my favorite collections from John Galliano Margiela.
When I knew I was obsessed with John Galliano's Margiela was when I loved the Resort 2022 collection. I was like, oh wait, I'm caping. I was like, I'm caping. I need to stop.
For me, it was definitely sealed with a loving kiss. SWOC stands for Sealed with a Loving Kiss.
Oh,
And when I was developing these ideas for the artisanal collection, I had an epiphany in which, and I love the way John Galliano sounds. It's so interesting.
Yo, Leo, you are right though. Graffiti is art. Shout out to graffiti. Shout out to graffiti. Don't bang the same like shout out to Ozempic. That was such a random thing I said on one stream that, like, no.
It was so weirdly. It's just so random.
I forgot what I was even talking about.
I was talking about SWOC, and you said that when you really knew that you liked Margiela was when you liked the resort
when
collection.
I was caping. No, not when I liked it. When I knew I was caping, because
okay.
I was started caping that resorts collection. I was like, bro, you're doing too much. It's a resort collection. No, because I really loved the fall the spring ready to wear 2021. Then it was a fall 2021 couture, and then the spring 2022 ready to wear. And then the resort came out. I was like, I love this too. I probably done it. Like, if I look at it today, I need to see if I still love it, to be fair. That hat is really nice though.
Yeah. Finn is just balling out of control. Another collection where I have pieces from, damn, I forget what I own. You know you're breaded when you forget what you own.
Yeah, money long.
What kind of closet do you have, Finn? Just some crazy walk-in closet. It's like I just don't know where things are. You know, artisanal 2020 Margiela. I just don't have a clue where it is.
I think this is started the America references.
Yeah.
The Blair Witch Trials, I'm pretty sure he's referenced in one collection. Yeah, that was 2021. Yeah, that was spring 2021, ready to wear.
I mean, this is spring 2019 on the screen.
I think the fall 2020 couture was when he did the cowboy one. That's when he went full Americana.
Yeah, I'm in the corner.
Americana. But no, this live was amazing.
No, it's been so much fun, honestly, talking about Galliano and the Margiela, because I think a lot of it goes unnoticed, minus, the viral show, but I feel like that has been covered so much at this point. I don't think there's more to add.
Yeah. I meant the same.
So I'm more...
You're right.
I'm more interested on the other stuff, for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of nuance, I guess, we kind of unraveled in that interview also. I wonder if it's the name of the video is going to be Galliano Circle Jerk, and it's a hour 20 video of us breaking down.
Good luck to the editor, because as we were speaking, because it's not segmented into parts, I wonder how he's going to clip this, but hey, good luck.
Yeah, man. Hey, there's a lot of good little clips, I guess. And your editor's been doing a good job, fairly.
Yeah, I know. He's been killing it. This entire stream was about Galliano. I'm surprised we haven't jumped from subject to subject. No, today is Galliano Day.
Yeah, we stuck on subject. It was kind of cool, to be fair.
We stuck on Galliano for a good 3 hours. Where else on the internet are you going to find people that ramble about Galliano for 3 hours? Nowhere.
3 hours.
Nowhere. It doesn't exist.
It was an illusion.
It was an optical illusion. It was a trompe-l'œil.
I need to rate Finn's closet and Ayo's bookshelf for sure. And
Finn, we're gonna need a closet tour soon.
Yeah, we need a one-of-one video where we just go through all of your looks and pieces.
But yeah, I think on that note, we should probably call it a day. I'm sure you have things to do, Dami. I also have a life to go back to.
I was at 11 o'clock. I was gonna say bye. We didn't go. I'll be real. I was like, I need to draw.
But thank you everyone for tuning in. As I always say, like the video, please. I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you want to watch the videos back, and for some reason you prefer to watch it on Spotify, I've started posting the streams on Spotify. I'm actually 5 or 6 streams behind, but I shall be catching up. And on that note, thank you so much everyone for tuning in to this Galliano TED Talk. We shall see you in the next stream. And till then, guys, adios.